everybody. Today we've gone past Praise I Am's room and seen Mr. Kent Hovind in there talking all kinds of nonsense about science, all kind of nonsense about evolution, and wants people to challenge him on evolutionary theory. So I thought that we'd step up to the challenge today. Usually I don't have anything to do with Hovind. I think there's a lot of really nasty allegations. He's been convicted of some sort of domestic violence against his wife. He's challenging that, trying to overturn the conviction. So he's appealing it, but there still is that whole thing over his head. So I thought I would go in there and really press him, not let him get away with his usual nonsense that he does. Now, I was sort of a bit more aggressive than I usually am. This isn't a debate, but it turned out fantastic, and sort of had to point out over and over and over where Mr. Hovind doesn't have any answers when you actually press him on what happened. All he's got is excuses. So, grab your favorite science textbook and grab your evolutionary model, and let's get ready to rumble. Hovind.
So you got some evidence for evolution tonight?
Oh, yeah. I want to present evidence with endogenous retroviruses, as we've probably touched on before, and chromosome 2 fusion are probably my best evidences that I can present. But I do want to focus on endogenous retroviruses because you're sort of talking very, very big about there being no evidence. And I want you to explain how every single cell in an organism can have the same ERV fragment with the GAG-POL ENV segment, and the long terminal repeats which show integrase making a cut in the segment of that DNA.
Well, stop. One topic at a time. I'll use one
that is
sentence
one
at
topic.
a time.
That's all one topic.
Okay. You want me to explain how every organism can have what? Just one thing now.
Okay, so every cell in your body has, I think about 8% is ERV, endogenous retroviral elements, right?
Right. Got it on screen right here.
Oh, yeah, okay. So basically what the evolutionary model says is that basically a retrovirus like AIDS or something like that, it's a retrovirus that transcribes itself into the cell of another organism as sort of a viral insertion using something called integrase. It basically transcribes itself, and then when that happens in a germline, like an egg or a sperm, it becomes because when the organism replicates it and grows, it duplicates that viral element over the entire organism. Now, what we found is that sort of, say, between us and chimps, now don't forget it's a random virus that attacks. It goes for a random place where it inserts itself, but us and chimps share 205 of these insertions with exactly the same viral element in exactly the same place. Now, we know it's been inserted because the only thing that makes these cuts, these long terminal repeats, is a retrovirus. We've seen it billions of times examining retroviral elements. So how did both us and chimpanzees have the same virus attack the same cell and insert themselves into the exact same place? And why has it happened so often?
Well, is that the only option you can think of, is we have to have a common ancestor with chimpanzees? Are there any? Could it be there was the common designer designed all these cells, and they went through some kind of tragedy, like going through Noah's flood, and everybody's all comes back down to a small population that have to breed back from there. I think you find the retrovirus is only the latest of many things they've thrown out. When was this put forth as evidence for evolution? When did they decide to jump on this one?
What do you mean, when did they? It's been around for a while. It's just
20 years?
Sorry?
It's been less than 20 years, I believe.
Yeah, probably about 10 years. I don't understand. We're not doing one topic, so I'm not sure what Noah's flood has got to do with anything. So let's leave Noah's flood aside for a second. You said that, is there any other way it could happen? Well, I'm not sure why God would pretend to use integrase to make cuts in the genome to make it look like viruses have inserted themselves there.
Okay, let me answer.
So if you could explain that one.
Okay, as I mentioned, this has only been around a short time because you guys, one by one, your evidences for evolution get debunked, and you have to come up with a new one every time. You used to teach about vestigial structures. That's been debunked. This one will be debunked. It already has been. Research on ERVs progressed. It became apparent that many of the genomic features are not junk, but important for the mammal's survival, such as placental development. They're not viruses. They're useful. They're carrying information. I bet if you took a novice and look at a computer code for, say, Microsoft, he might look at all the Microsoft Windows. He might look at all the lines of code and say, we don't need that line. We don't need that one. Look, that's junk. That's junk insertion in the code because he doesn't understand what it's for. There's like put a 10-year-old in a car and say, here, what's all these buttons for? I don't know. You don't need that. You don't need that. Put them under the hood of the car. You don't know what the ERVs are for. Just in the last 10 years, they've been parroted as, the latest evidence for evolution. And they're not fully understood. There may be thousands of similarities between different animals because they do the same thing. The humans and the apes both have a placenta. Maybe this has something to do with the code, where to put the placenta, how to get it to embed into the uterus, how to get it to break loose afterwards. Aren't you glad it breaks loose after the baby's born? So I think there's a lot more research needs to be done. It's pretty new stuff, and you're hanging all your hat on something just in the last 10 years. Your dumb religion of evolution has been out for 160 years. Do you have anything other than ERVs?
Yeah, calling it dumb isn't a refutation, and you didn't actually address what I said. What I asked is how it got there. All you're doing is claiming that a god put it there for some reason and made it look like viruses inserted itself into the DNA, which we have seen so many times it's ridiculous. You didn't address why it has all of the hallmarks of a virus, including the very notable structure, the very unique structure of LTR, GAG, ENB, pol, LTR. It always comes in that format. But you haven't addressed how it got into every single DNA cell in that, except that, hey, God just placed it there and made it look like a virus has inserted itself, which is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. If that were the case, and the whole idea of vestigial structures, just because you don't understand what vestigial structures are, vestigial structures are structures that do not do its original function, not ones that have no function. So you don't understand what they are, Mr. Hovind. Maybe you should read up on that and find out what they actually are. Now, just because there is sort of some use, and we know that these ERVs, they can mutate same as any other part of the cell, so they can have beneficial functions, but that falls perfectly in line with the nested hierarchy of the evolutionary tree, not within some god put it there and then mucked around with it so it looked like a virus infected the germline, when you have no evidence. That's just a bald-faced assertion with nothing to back it up. I mean, you can sit there and say, oh, it's stupid, oh, it's dumb, it's this. That's not a refutation of what I've said. It's just an assertion.
Okay, let me explain. ERVs have been studied pretty intently for the last 10 years. They are useful for lots of things. They're part of the immune system. They play key roles in controlling the immune response, innate immune response. Maybe you need that in every cell. I don't know. Okay, but they're involved in. It's a code, and you don't fully understand what it does. If you took all the ERVs out of every cell of your body, would you still be able to live?
I don't know. Some of them don't appear to, well, they don't do anything as far as we can tell. In fact, we can replace some of the genome with other random elements and they still don't do anything. Like, you can basically do without them. Some of them do. Like, there is the SIRH family of ERVs that seem to are responsible for placental mammals. But here's the interesting thing, that marsupials and monotremes don't use that family of viruses, which it's a nested hierarchy. We can tell that the family of viruses hit that organism that then branched off after mammals, after marsupials, but before other other mammals branched off. So marsupials, for instance, they don't have that retroviral sequence. So they don't use the normal placental system that we do. They have pouches. And then the monotremes still lay eggs. They are totally different with a totally different ERV structure within them. But the other ones have that ERV structure. They do have what the monotremes have. So what does that tell us? That tells us there was a virus before when they were all related. Another one after they split infected that germline, copied themselves into it, but the monotremes didn't have in there.
Well, this is an assertion you claim after they split. You've got this family tree stuck in your head. You believe it's true that everything goes back to a common ancestor. And you said after the monotreme split off or the marsupial split off, it didn't happen. Nobody's ever seen a marsupial produce a baby that was not a marsupial. Nobody's ever seen a kangaroo make a non-kangaroo or come from a non-kangaroo. But you believe a kangaroo came from an amoeba or a protozoa, a single-celled creature. This is pure religion. You don't know that. It's not science. So the fact that there are some similarities in the ERV, the data suggests ERVs may regulate human transcription on a large scale. Lots of study has been done. This is from 1908. So lots of study has been done for nearly 20 years on these things, 15 years. And I think the jury's not in yet, that's for sure. But 2014, scientists identify new beneficial function of endogenous retroviruses from Science News. Wow. Endogenous retroviruses play a critical role in the body's immune defense against common bacteria and viral pathogens, researchers found. Retroviruses are best known for causing contagious scourges like AIDS, or more sporadically, cancer. Switching sides from 2021, 2 years ago. They said endogenous retroviruses protect us from viral infections. So it is not true that ERVs are evidence for evolution. I think they have a function, and you don't know all about them. Let's wait till the jury's in. Certainly, if there are similarities in ERVs in one animal and another, that wouldn't prove common ancestor. It could prove common designer. It could prove they meet a common need for fighting infection. I bet chimpanzees have to fight infections too. I'm sorry, you're dreaming, sir, dreaming. Here.
No, you're dreaming, Kent. The whole idea that I ask how they got there, and you've strenuously avoided answering it all, just going, you know what's religion? Religion is, hey, my imaginary friend put those there. That's religion, Kent. That's your delusion. You need to show how they got there. And, you know, all this stuff you always claim with oh, you can't show this, you can't show that. Show me that a god put them there. We've never seen a god put an ERV and stuff either. So why don't you show that instead? But you can't even explain how they got there without calling upon some magical deity to wave his hand and teleport them in there while creating the segments, the LTRs, the long terminal repeats. That shows definitively that integrase made a cut in those cells. No, I'm going to finish what I'm saying. That is pure religion. That is your fanciful imagination, is what that is. Now, switching sides.
One topic at a time.
This is one topic at a time. Look, if Kent brings up that science, that noted science, and science that has been demonstrated in the real world, not where you guys live, but the real world, if he can basically bring up that that's neuroscience, I can push back on that his religion is trying to quash science because it disagrees with his favorite book. That's basically it. And if he gets to say that it's stupid and it's not science, I get to push back. I think that's fair. Now, if you don't want to be fair, that's your entire thing. But I want to address this whole idea that retroviruses do prevent other viral infections, because that's what retroviruses do. You brought this up, Ken. You do this every time. You bring up a subject, and then what you do is you say, oh, you're off topic when I try and address it. I'm trying to address what you said.
Down so Ken can respond, then go ahead.
Mark,
well, I'm trying to address what Ken said.
Would you please shut him off and let me answer, and then he can talk. He made a statement about what about my imaginary friend, God, that made all this stuff like that. That's a fair point. I'm not demanding that my religion be taught in the schools at taxpayer expense. You think everybody should be forced to pay for your stupid religion of evolution to be taught. That's the difference, Mark. Go ahead.
Not a religion. It's not a religion at all. It's a science. No, it's not. And the reason why is there's no churches to evolution. There's laboratories. There's people out there like real doctors doing experiments and working with these things, that's how you can tell it's a religion. It's not some person just saying, hey, that's stupid, and then saying, hey, I've got this book, I believe this, let's teach this in our Bible studies and in classrooms. That's what you do. That's not what scientists do. But the whole idea that ERVs can prevent viruses, that's what ERVs do, or retroviruses in general, I should say. So even something like the AIDS virus, when it does infect somebody, it wants to basically stop that cell that it infects, the genome that it infects, from getting other viruses. It wants to hoard it to itself. So retroviruses, if you knew anything about them, will naturally try to prevent infections. It's not benefiting the host. It's not doing it for the host. It doesn't have this idea of, oh, we're going to put it there to benefit the host. It's trying to benefit itself. Because, like I said, the retroviral element in the genome is subject to just as much change as any other element in the genome. So if another retrovirus integrates itself, it can damage the one that's already there. That's why it prevents other viruses from coming in. It's a survival mechanism, not for the host, for itself.
I just want to interject here too. I know Jamie's been sitting there quiet. Jamie, if you want to add anything to this discussion, we'd like to hear your
Sure,
point of
Jamie,
view
go
too.
for it.
Yeah, so I'd actually like to just kind of ask Mark a series of questions and just kind of get a better understanding of this, because I've heard you guys make the claims for this is evidence for evolution, but maybe you can help me understand this a little bit better, Mark.
Okay. I'll try.
So
I'm
asking you to educate me here. Okay. So the first question I have is, what is your answer for how these endogenous retroviruses got into the DNA in the first place?
Okay, because
how did it originally get there?
Right, because it's in every cell of your body, right? So 8% of your body is retroviral elements. It's in every single cell. That's the genome. It's been fixed in the human genome. That's why they're called HERVs, human endogenous retroviruses. So basically, a virus has to integrate itself into a organism's DNA when it's in the germline. So in a sperm or an egg. And it infects that sperm. Now, when the organism starts to grow, like just say it infects an egg, right? And that sits there, and then it divides into 2, 4, 8, 16, etc., etc. Like it just divides. But it copies the genome. So if it was just a random cell in your body, it wouldn't be in every single cell. So if you got infected by a retrovirus, like AIDS, for instance, the insertion would be at random places of cells in your body, and it wouldn't be in every cell. But in the germline, it means it replicates through the entire organism, right? So that's how we know it infected the germline.
Okay, but my question, like you explained how it's in the body and all that, but
yeah,
what I'm trying to figure out is, how did it originally get into the host? That's the question I'm asking.
Horizontal transmission. So, like AIDS is carried by blood, for instance. You know, we know that it's carried by blood. So blood transfer. Some use a viral, like sort of airborne pathogens. Some are sort of contact pathogens. There's a whole range of transmission methods that viruses use to transmit themselves. So, sort of, it could have been any number of these sort of vectors that they follow to infect another host. So basically
the same way that we would see a virus get into the body today, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So then let's say, recently 2 years ago, we had an event happen where a new virus started getting into people's bodies, correct? We'll just call it the C19er to prevent the scans on YouTube and all that, to shut us down.
Okay.
Right. So let's say the C19er gets into everybody's body now, right?
Yes.
It even got into, they're claiming that it got into deers. It got into the monkeys. It got into, they're claiming it's getting into everything, right?
Sure.
It's infecting the whole world, basically.
Yes.
So now we know that this virus is inside of everything's body, including humans and monkeys and everything else. Now, if we give it 100 years and our bodies decide to adapt that into our body and incorporate it in a way that makes our body function, whether it be better or worse, let's just say that this virus now, our body takes it and says, hey, we can actually use this, and we'll modify it to do a function in the body. So that's an adaptation, right? You have no problem with adaptations. So 100 years from now, 100 years from now, when everyone's forgotten about what happened 2 years ago, if that even is possible, 100 years from now, they're going to go through this sequence. They're going to say, hey, this virus inserted itself and it's in all the animals. So is that a valid reason to say that humans who got this 2 years ago and apes who got this 2 years ago at some point evolved from each other? Is that a reason to say that?
Well, what you'd see is something completely different, because what you're talking about is like the virus infects us, right? And it infects the chimpanzees over there, right? So what you would find in the case that you're describing is that that particular virus would be at different places within the genome. Because don't forget, the insertion is within random. It doesn't go, okay, I've got to insert myself in this place in the genome. It just finds a target site and inserts itself there. We've seen this millions of times with retroviruses. So it just inserts itself. So what you would actually have in what you're describing is the humans having it in one place and different humans having it in different places around their body. If it wasn't the germline, if it wasn't the egg or the sperm, it wouldn't be in the same place for all humans, right? Because it needs to be in that germline to copy itself throughout the entire body. So A, it wouldn't be through the entire body. It wouldn't be through every single cell in the body. B, it would be at a different place than the ape. Because when it infects us, it just goes to a target location, inserts itself randomly in that target location, goes to the ape, grabs a target location, inserts itself randomly in the target location, and that would be completely different. What we're talking about...
Why are you assuming that they would be different targets, though? I mean, if the virus, wouldn't the virus act the same in all of its hosts?
Yes, but it can insert itself nearly anywhere in the genome. It just picks a spot. And we've seen this with AIDS virus, we've seen this with every single retrovirus. It just picks a target site and inserts itself there, right? It doesn't choose.
So now,
look, Jamie,
it doesn't
hang on, it doesn't have a brain. It's not choosing, hey, I want to go to this spot. It just finds a spot, uses integrase to cut that DNA, inserts its own genetic sequence into that spot, and then it forms part of that DNA code, which is then replicated. The replication of that genome produces more viral elements, which then go on to find another location. So we observe these viruses sort of making a cut here. They get spread around. It makes a cut in a different place in another cell kind of thing. So what you're describing, we would see a totally different effect if they had no common ancestor that had been infected by an endogenous retrovirus at the germline.
Well, see, that's where I'm not 100% sure that you're explaining it correctly, because,
okay,
for instance, let's say there's a virus that attacks the blood cells, right? Well, wouldn't it do the same thing in an ape or a fish that it would in a human? It would go for the blood cells, right?
No, viruses don't like when you say attack the blood cells, they don't. Viruses aren't really interested in attacking things specifically. Like, that's just the effect they produce. When they copy themselves into DNA, it might be in the blood or in somewhere, but it's still at different parts of the genome. You don't have like something that just goes for the one insertion point in every single cell it infects. That isn't what they do. They just find a place somewhere on the genome that they can insert themselves and insert themselves there. So the probability of two different viruses, or the same virus, say, sorry, you were using the same virus, like targeting the same point in our genome and the same point in chimp's genome, is astronomical. And don't forget, there's 205 of them that we share in the same point, same virus. The odds are preposterous.
The retroviruses that you're explaining, you're saying that they're in every single cell, correct?
Yes.
So then what if there was a virus that attacked what if there was a virus that inserted itself into the entire body? Maybe it branches off, reproduces, and spreads throughout the whole body, kind of like cancer. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a virus that's spreading across the body, and it did it to an entire let's say Africa, right?
Sure.
To
All right.
everything that lives in Africa, right?
Let's say there is one that attacks every single cell in the body, which is, a bit weird because it'd have to be in
Well,
the
not
skin
necessarily
cells.
attacks,
And
but it's going to want to survive. So part of its survival process is
yeah, I mean, it seems
reproduces
really
and will
unlikely
spread.
because it would be in the skin cells. It would be in every like that. That's a really weird something to infect in the blood and also the skin. It seems really, but sure. Let's say when it does transcribe itself and propagate, like it actually sends more viral elements to infect, they would infect random points on your body. So even if every cell got infected by an ERV or a retrovirus, like we see in AIDS, like we see in any of the retroviruses out there, they would be in different places of the genome inserting themselves. They wouldn't be in the same place. Because that's even more unlikely.
Okay.
Like
And then the other thing that I was kind of unsure about was you were saying that this ERV is in the exact same spot in humans as it is in apes, right?
yes.
But if it's
Well,
in every single cell, then how are you trying to narrow it down to one specific spot, right? Because that's the other question I have is you're saying that
Are you
this
serious,
ERV,
Jamie? Do you understand how a genome works?
well, that's why I'm asking you these questions because
Okay, so
I haven't dug into this yet. So
So-
I'm trying to understand your logic to this.
so right, you have cells in your body, right? And each one of them has a copy of your DNA in it, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the viral element, the GAG ENV pol with the long terminal repeats, is in the same place in that genome in every single cell of your body. It is in your DNA. 8% of your DNA are ERV fragments that we can find and identify, right? So it doesn't. It's not like one place in your body. It's every cell in your body. It has become fixed in human DNA that 8% is these viral elements.
Okay. That's what I was misunderstanding then. Okay, that makes a
Okay.
little bit more sense then. Okay.
Oh yeah, I think we'll circle it on back to Kent now. So with the ERVs, I think there's contentions or contending evidences on both sides. But so Mark,
Not in
can you want
science
to go to
there
your
isn't. Yeah,
you want to go to your
not in.
second line of
Yeah, I'll just
argumentation?
quickly
What was
say, not in science there isn't. It's absolutely overwhelming evidence in science. I mean, you guys can sort of hand wave it away, but I just want to point out I still haven't gotten a reasonable explanation of how they got there besides magic. So just want to point that out. Second one is chromosome 2 fusion. We have chromosome 2, 2 and 3, 2A and 2B, sorry, for apes that have telomeres, the end parts of the chromosome. We have fragments of them on the inside and a second centromere fragment, exactly where it would be if it was the chromosome 2. Hello?
So, who's that for? And was that a question? Why
Well,
is the chromosome 2?
Yeah, so I'd like you to explain why there's telomeres on the. There's 2 telomeres in the center of our chromosome 2. When telomeres are on the outside, they show the endpoints of that chromosome. So why are there telomeres in the center, telomere fragments in the center, and why is there a second centromere fragment in the lower half of chromosome 2 for humans?
Oh, well, do you understand how complex one chromosome is?
Sure.
And you think it happened by chance?
What do you mean chance? I don't understand. No, I don't think it happened by chance.
Oh, I know you don't. I know you don't understand. Did anybody design the chromosome, or did all the
Okay,
all those
so-
molecules?
Yeah, I'll just explain it to you because you don't seem to understand that evolution isn't chance. So, evolution, basically, mutations will happen. And in this case, what we believe is that fusion happened between, that's the only possible explanation why the telomeres are in the center and the centromere has the chromosome has a second centromere, is because if that fused and it was a benefit, it's not chance. Like it's like saying chance is when you roll dice, take away the lowest, and then it's chance that you got a high number. That isn't true. because when you're selecting for things, it isn't chance. So I'll just correct you on that because it's completely erroneous to say that.
Okay. The chromosome itself, to start with, before there were any changes to it, one chromosome is more complex than the space shuttle. And you believe do you believe nobody designed any of the chromosomes in the world?
Yep, so that's called an argument from incredulity. Just because you're incredulous that it happened naturally doesn't mean that it didn't. That's just sort of you making a fallacy to say, hey, I don't believe it. I don't care if you believe it. That's what science has predicted and came up with, because that's what we do. That's what humans do. We use methodological naturalism to come up with the things that we put forward, and evolution is a proper scientific theory that's been demonstrated many times.
Well, that's what I've been asking for years. What evidence would link anybody to believe that a single chromosome, for example, could form itself without a designer? Could a computer code like Microsoft PowerPoint, could that form itself by random collection of dots and dashes and zeros and ones? No.
Yeah,
it's obviously got a designer.
Yeah, if you had a process for generating random segments of code, like just random stuff, and you take out everything that is not computer code, eventually you would have computer code. Just over a long enough time, just by sheer selection process. But where you are failing is that computer code, in the way that evolution happens, it doesn't select, right? We write it, and that's where you're making a really bad conflation of things. But if you do select for something, if you had random elements and you took out everything that wasn't computer code and kept everything that was computer code, yeah, you would come up with code eventually. And that's where you're going wrong.
Okay, Mark, who is doing the taking out? And who knows which is computer code and which isn't? If it's just random zeros and ones, who does the taking out?
It's the environment for evolution. It's basically whatever helps the organism survive and procreate, thus keeping the genetic sequence going, is the thing that is selecting, while all of the bad code, the stuff that doesn't make sense in your weird analogy here, that's basically dying. So their code doesn't keep going. And that's I mean, I know you know this, Mr. Hovind. You're told this like many, many times. So I know you know this.
Well, I understand that the chromosome of just one chromosome is more complex than Microsoft PowerPoint, which is how many million lines of code.
Yeah, I said that already.
And you really believe, you want to know how chromosome 2 got fused, you better back up, way back up. That one chromosome is more complex than Microsoft PowerPoint code.
Yep, said that already.
Has, millions of lines of code. So
just because you're incredulous doesn't mean it's not happening, Mr. Hovind.
Right. And just because you believe it happened doesn't mean it happened either.
No, the chromosome 2 fusion shows that. That's what I'm saying. Like we have a system, like we understand that chromosomes have telomeres on the outside and centromeres on the inside. Do you understand that? Like in the center.
Right.
Well, then you understand that. So why, I'll go back to the question that you strenuously avoided asking. Why does the human chromosome 2 have telomeres in the center, of fragments of telomeres in the center, and a fragment of centromere in the second half of the chromosome? Why is that?
Well, there's a long article about that on ICR.org.
Oh, what's it called?
I don't have my slide. I don't have the slides ready for that. So,
Creation Ministries?
Wait. ICR is a creation ministry. They teach real science there, okay, instead of the dumb evolution religion. They don't teach we all came from a rock, came from a dot exploding. Now, if you wish to believe...
That's a straw man. That's a straw man, Mr. Hovind, and you know it. That's a straw man. No, it's a straw man. No, it's a straw man. Come on, Kent, stop making the straw men. It's not what people think. Just stop it.
It's perfectly fine. Now, chromosomes...
It's really not.
The chromosomes individually are so complex, there is no possibility they would happen with billions and trillions of years. Your answer, which you gave, was
stop changing the subject. stop changing the subject, one subject at a time. No. One subject at a time. Let's keep it fair.
I agree.
So we were talking about the centromeres and telomeres in chromosome 2 of humans. So instead of going back saying, oh, where did this... No, stick to the topic. Why is there, again, you didn't answer the question, why is there telomeres in the center of chromosome 2 for humans and a centromere in the lower second half, right? And in apes, 2A and 2B are all are two different ones with telomeres on either end and a centromere in the middle. Why is that?
I don't know right now. I will find out, and we'll do a debate on that if you like. Okay? But if it is true, if it's true that these chromosomes and apes and humans have these telomeres, as you mentioned, the only way that can happen is by evolution? Could it be designed? Maybe there's a function like the ERVs. They're finding out, wow, they do have a function. Wow, they used to teach vestigial structures. Oh, wow, they do have a function. So you don't know that I will find out more. I wrote myself a note, and I will be ready next time. I'll get slides together. But I read a big article about that years ago on ICR.org, a creationist YouTube website. Yes, they got great. So does Answers in Genesis.
So you don't know. So you don't know. So you've dedicated your entire life to refuting evolution, and you just don't know.
Do you know what color the gear shift knob is on my Honda? I bet there's a lot of things you don't know either.
I bet it's a pretty pink. I think it's a pretty pink. I really do. That's what I think. I think it's a pretty pink. Yeah, so that's just silly because we're talking about, like, I am not claiming to be knowledgeable about your gear shift. I mean, I hate the day that I am. You are claiming to be knowledgeable about evolution, and this has been brought up to you before. I know it has been brought up to you before, and you still don't have it. No, wait a second. You still don't have an answer. No, but at least I'm not claiming to be an expert on evolution. Mr. Hovind is. Are you an expert on evolution? Are you? Hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. Are you claiming to be an expert on evolution?
I think evolution is dumb. Nobody would want to be an
expert. That doesn't answer the question. Oh, so you're not. You don't know anything. You don't know anything about evolution. You don't know your stuff.
No, an X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. Okay, so I don't want to be an expert on evolution. I think nobody's ever observed any plant or animal produce offspring other than their kind. And I get sick and tired of you guys putting your family trees, claiming that you are related to a banana, and we all go back to a bacteria. That's
just following the evidence. We're just following the evidence, and that's all.
That's not the. Where's the evidence that a human and a bird?
You can't address the evidence, Kent. You don't know. You can't address the evidence. That's what you've already said. So, that's fine. You don't know. You've got no idea. That's fine. That's fine.
Maybe you will get it this time, Mark. Now listen.
You haven't actually said anything substantive.
Please stop over talking, Kent, Mark. Please let him finish.
All right, sorry. You're right.
I will put together slides specifically on chromosome 2 just for you. I will see if I can find out. But see, in your little world, the only way this could have happened is evolution, common ancestor. Maybe there's a design feature there that we don't know yet. I bet as I'm typing in my Microsoft Word, all of a sudden words get underlined in red. There's a line of code in there that said this is misspelled. Wow. I bet the same thing's found in Microsoft PowerPoint. All of a sudden, poof, a red line. Oh, I got a misspelling. So does the fact that both PowerPoint and Word have a red line coming up once in a while, they have a spell check program, that's a part of the design feature. Maybe this chromosome 2 has a design feature. I don't know. I will find out. Next question.
So hold on. Can I just bring something up for a second?
Absolutely.
So, Mark, you're saying that because Kent doesn't know all the ins and outs of ERVs, therefore he knows nothing about evolution. But
that's not what I claimed.
That's pretty much what you just claimed.
No, I asked him if he was an expert on evolution, and he said no.
Let me finish my statement, though. So I've debated plenty of people on evolution, and I am constantly watching other people's debates. And when a creationist asks them something that they don't know the answer to, they say, oh, well, that's not my field of expertise, because they claim they're an expert. Sure. That's not my field of expertise. You need to go talk to the biologist, or you need to go talk to the archaeologist, or whatever it may be.
Sure.
So why is it that you expect us to know absolutely everything about every single department, but yet when evolutionists make the claim that they don't know something about that, all of a sudden it's okay? So it's like you're expecting us to know everything, but you fully know that not everyone knows everything on your side either.
Sure.
And then
Sure.
to kind of like back off of that
well,
point,
can I answer that, or can I answer that, or?
Yeah, but I'm still addressing that question though. So since we know that there's some people that are experts, how come you never come on the live stream when Standing for Truth is on the live stream? Because he's technically the one that would be the expert on ERVs. Every time I've seen him challenge you multiple times on ERVs, and you won't come on when he's on the mic. So why?
Oh, really? Do you want to talk to Praise and try to reaffirm what you've said? Maybe check that you're actually right. Praise, do I ever not come on the live stream because Donnie's on the live stream?
Oh, you came on here one time on my show. I don't know about his particular
Twice, actually.
show.
Twice, actually. You might want to go to Standing for Truth.
Yeah.
You might want to go to Standing for Truth's channel and look up sort of the impromptu debates Donnie and I have had on this exact channel there, Jamie, before you start throwing around stuff like that. Do you want to maybe check that? Maybe,
yeah, I'll be glad to look into that.
Review your statement there, maybe. Yeah. No, what I'm saying, Jamie, is I've talked to Donnie at least a couple of times on this channel. So just because you're ignorant of that happening doesn't mean it never happened.
Okay, but all the arguments that you're using for me and Kent right now, who we both admit that we don't spend all of our time studying this topic, all of those arguments, he's been shooting me the answers to them. I just don't understand them, so I can't recite them back to you.
Okay, so Jamie,
to your claim.
Jamie, I want to address your question now. You've sort of, I've clarified, hey, you're wrong. I have talked to Donnie about it. You're wrong. I have challenged Donnie publicly on this very channel, so you're wrong about that. Secondly, because the reason why I am asking Mr. Hovind to present something that says that he is knowledgeable about this, the reason why I'm doing that is because he is challenging the people that have dedicated their lives to studying this for years and years and years, and doing experiments and working in real laboratories and putting together papers, having them peer reviewed, working very hard and very diligently to make sure they are not using bias in their scientific results. They are just taking the facts and following them where the evidence leads. Now, if you want to challenge that's hang on, Jamie, let me finish. If you want to challenge, no, they're not. No, they're not.
Yes,
that's the whole point. They
have a presupposition.
No, they don't.
Evolution.
No, they don't.
Going into these studies, saying what do these ERVs mean? Because all these questions that I were asking about, how did they get there? How could this possibly go? Did they ever ask the questions from a creationist perspective?
No, Jamie, there is no, Jamie, let me finish. I mean, why can't I talk why do you talk over me after?
You're going to filibuster and bulldoze, so I'm going to do the exact
What do you mean
thing
filibuster and bulldoze? I'm answering your question. The reason why is because these people have an expertise in the subject, and Mr. Hovind says that he knows better, but he can't even address simple questions, much less complex ones. That's the problem. Now, if you say they have a bias,
you said there's no bias, and that's not true at all.
That is true.
One of these people that are being paid to do these every single person that's being paid to do this research on ERVs in your laboratories, as you call them, every single one of those people are being paid by organizations that want the result of evolution. So yes, they're going to look at it from an evolutionary perspective.
I'm not interested in your. Hang on, let me answer, Jamie. Don't just talk over the top of me. Come on now. I'm not interested.
For the past 10
Jamie, minutes. No, I haven't. I've been quiet while you've asked your questions, and then you just talking. Look.
Yeah, you're just mad because I'll dish it right back to you, buddy.
Look, Jamie, there's no wild conspiracy theory happening here. Like, if you want to go and say there's this massive conspiracy, fine. Go and do your conspiracy somewhere else, because mainstream science, there's no conspiracy going on. I mean, it's just a nutbag. It's a conspiracy that we're not being recognized. It's not. It's just the scientists doing it know a lot more than we do, and they're following the evidence where it leads. And evolution has had so much evidence behind it. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry that you're ignorant and you don't know that, but there is.
Aside from this topic that I know nothing about, what other evidence is out there that just stacks upon? Because every single line of evidence that I understand, every single argument that y'all bring up that I understand, there's a clear answer that disproves them. So please give me something that I can understand.
Sure.
And then we'll see exactly what other evidence you have. Because every time I see you pull up on the live streams, the only thing you'll bring up is ERVs, because this is something complicated that only specific people spend all of their time studying.
Well, I don't spend all of my time studying. I spend very little studying it, actually. It's once you wrap your head around it, it's pretty basic the way I've described. Anyway, so basically the reason why I bring up ERVs is because people challenge me to bring the strongest evidence. That's why. It's just the strongest. That's all. So you have stuff like novel testable predictions. We have Archaeopteryx. We have Tiktaalik. We have these predictions of what we should find when we look at certain places within certain layers of the strata. That's essentially what we have.
Pause that for a second, because you mentioned fossils. Now you realize that fossils are completely based on your interpretation of the fossils. Also, you said Tiktaalik.
You mean geology?
Do you actually know the story of Tiktaalik? It was 3 different fossils in different layers that were found and combined to make it.
No,
I actually have photos of the dig site. At the dig site, there was a skull of what looked like a baby alligator. And then in layers down and distances away, they found a little fin, and then they actually combined it to make Tiktaalik. So that is a 100% forgery that they're still trying to use for evidence. So see, they didn't predict that they would find this. They actually created a prediction and then forged evidence to
nobody forged evidence. Jamie, look, I'm not interested in your wild ass conspiracy theories. Nobody forged evidence. They found 3 separate fossils from the Devonian period in that layer of stratigraphy. That's what they found. I'm really sorry that you can't accept that and that you have this wild conspiracy theory to sort of make it so the evidence goes away. But that is not what happened. I'm sorry.
The Tiktaalik is 3 different fossils that were combined, and then they made a replica. If you look at the real fossils that are in the archive, they're 3 separate fossils that were found separately. The photos of the dig site specifically show 3 different areas that these fossils were in. So you took 3 different fossils from different areas and combined them together.
They weren't combined. They were just 3 fossils. They weren't combined. They didn't do that.
Okay, so you now admit that there were 3 fossils that were not.
I already did. I already did, Jamie. You're not listening.
So see, this is what the thing is. They had the bias of proving evolution. They wanted to prove evolution. They took 3 puzzle pieces from different puzzles and put them together into one puzzle.
Okay, so conspiracy boy, show that is the case. Show that they did that. Do you have any proof they did that besides your wild ass assertions?
Yeah, there's actually articles
so what is it?
And they're
articles. Give me one. What's an article on it?
A whole video on these forgeries.
What's an article on it?
Together a whole video on these forgeries.
Well, what's the article?
That will be coming in the future.
Well, what's the article?
There are articles that show this.
Yeah, which ones?
Look up photos of Tiktaalik.
No, which ones?
The guy that discovered it.
No, give me an article.
Of him holding the box.
Jamie, don't just talk about articles when you say, "Hey, I have evidence." Show the evidence. What is this article? Where is it from? Is it from a credible source? This is what we want to know.
Well, see, there's the other question is what's credible?
No. Don't just skip that. What's the article? Don't just go, I can't show the article. I'm away. Where's that?
Here's the thing.
Come on.
No, listen, here's the thing. You said, show me an article from a credible source. And what that means in code word is show me an article from someone that I am willing to agree with.
Well, what is your article? You won't show it.
Yeah,
you won't show it. See, this is the dishonesty of people like you, Jamie. You say, "Oh, I've got facts, I've got evidence," and all you can do is just walk away and say, "Oh, I've got an article somewhere that's supposed to say something." It is the most dishonest position. I can see that you're evading. Everybody can see you're evading.
Go look at the link that's in the private chat right now. There it is. It's right there. Someone else put the article in there for you. But look, what you're going to do is you're going to go look at that article and say, "Oh, that's not credible in my eyes, so I dismiss that and you're a liar." That's what you do. So yes, it's a complete conspiracy regardless of what you want to say.
A complete conspiracy. Yeah, this is just a conspiracy theory. It basically says that it's a conspiracy theory. It's basically
we're gonna let Kent,
just made up that they put it together. Okay.
Would you please shut his mic off while I talk? Shut it off. Okay.
Well, I can't address stuff.
He's not capable of.
You want to be unfair? Then
he's not capable of shutting his own mouth, so you shut it for him. Okay. Now, as I said, there are articles about this. You show me the article. I'm showing it to you, Mark. Go to Acts and Facts, type in Human Chromosome 2 Fusion Never Happened by Jeffrey Tompkins. I will do some more research on this, but this is 2020, the Institute for Creation Research. They've done a lot of study on this and said, look, this is a bunch of baloney. You believe this is your best evidence because this incredibly complex DNA code is combined. And you say, wow, the only way this can happen is evolution. It's not the only way, and there are people who do research on that. There's a lot of things I don't research on. I don't research on the coefficient of thermal expansion of aluminum heads on a Volkswagen engine either, okay? Because I don't care. So yes, there are things. So there are articles. Here's one now. Do you have a different topic you'd like to talk about, Mark? Or is there anybody else out there who would like to talk about evolution before he?
Yes, we have Orgate now too. Orgate's in the house. Good to see you, Orgate. Would you like to address Dr. Hovind?
Hey guys. Yeah, I wasn't listening before this. I was putting my kid to bed, so I don't know what you're on now. But first of all, and to just go on Jamie and Mark, just my thoughts on that. The link I posted, Mark, has a pretty good summary of Tiktalik's, or however you want to pronounce it, this week's discovery at the very bottom of that Reddit post, detailing that it was multiple fossils, not the same fossil in multiple locations, but 3 separate parts of the same creature. So
Yeah, I said
Mark,
that.
your assessment was correct.
Yes.
And it's got a pretty good rundown of that there. So that was.
And they
that
weren't
part.
combined into
I
a
didn't
single
know if-
fossil.
Yeah, I didn't know if Hovind wanted to stick in biology or not, because if he wants to stay in biology, I can't play. But I had a geo question for him.
Was the question for me about Tiktaalik?
No, I had a question for you about geology. If you want to stay in biology, that's fine. But
Yeah. No, it's okay. Either one. Go ahead.
okay. Yeah, the Tiktaalik thing I don't know much about, but I'm wondering your thought on large igneous provinces, if you're familiar with that subject at all.
I didn't hear a couple words in there. What provinces?
Large igneous provinces.
No, I guess I'd have to hear it. I'd have to see it spelled out because I'm going deaf in my old age. But
large igneous provinces.
Oh, large igneous provinces. Like, give me an example. What's the point of this?
The Siberian traps, the Deccan traps, these sort of things. Are you familiar with that?
You mean igneous rock that is trapped animals? Is that what you're talking about?
No, they are very super large igneous provinces, like really like gigantic, like the size of the state, but it's one eruption.
Well, igneous rock means it's been ignited, it's been burned. This is typically lava or pumice or something like that. There are huge amounts of that in the world, indicating there were some really big volcanoes. I would say, the Bible says during the flood, the fountains of the deep broke open. I think there were volcanoes pouring out igneous rock all over the place. So if there's a pile of igneous rock as big as a province, I don't have a problem with that fitting that into the Bible theory. I guess I'm still not comprehending. What exactly do you want to know?
Well, yeah, that's I don't think I could turn my mic up any. Sorry. But basically, that's what I'm wondering is we have many very large volcanic eruption events that span the entire rock record, going back very far to somewhat very recently. And I'm wondering if all that volcanism in your mind is an issue for the flood, because that volcanism would be lots of heat and it'd be all these other things. And if you consider that a contributing factor or not, a bad thing.
Well, as far as you say, in the rock record and going back, you don't go back in the rock. There's no such thing as a geologic column. There are lots of layers of rock. That's no question. All of them formed in one big flood in the days of Noah, I believe. Petrified trees are found standing up, connecting all of them. So I think it's obvious they were rapid deposition. So I think, yes, you would have during this flood and after the flood, and actually volcanoes are still going on today. They're happening, okay? So yes, but there's no such thing as a geologic column. The petrified trees standing up prove it's absolutely baloney, and it's common sense. They say the top layer is younger. Where's it coming from? Outer space? All the layers are the same age. All the layers on the planet. There's no such thing as a geologic column. That's dumb. So yes, during the flood, you'd have igneous rock. It can ignite underwater. You'd have volcanoes going off right now underwater all over the world. So that's not a problem. And it cools off faster is all it does. So I think this would fit right into the flood model. The Bible says at the end of time, the scoffers, 2 Peter chapter 3, would be willingly ignorant of the creation and the flood. If a flood happened, like the Bible predicts worldwide, parts of the world might have only been underwater for a couple of weeks or a month, but Noah was in the ark for a year. But all of the geologic layers that we see could easily be formed by tidal pumping. The moon is pulling the water up right now on the earth about 5 feet in Florida, up in the Bay of Fundy, maybe 30, 50, 60 feet sometimes during spring tide and neap tide. But the tide coming up and down means the water's going in and out of that bump as the world turns around. It's the tidal pumping up and down, which would be much greater if the earth were completely covered in water. You would get a harmonic tide, about a 200-foot tidal change. It's a sideways movement that's going to make all these layers in months. During that time, the crust of the earth is cracked up, so you have igneous rock, you have volcanic activity all over the place. And I don't see how that fits fine in the biblical mode. We'll have to watch the video or DVD, whatever they got in heaven, to see how it happened exactly. But see, the evolutionists believe all the igneous rock in the world, the whole world itself, came from a dot smaller than a proton. I don't think there's a problem. The minor issues about all the igneous rock coming from volcanoes during Noah's flood, or since then, there's still igneous rock being produced today. So I guess I'm still trying to understand, is your question, you don't understand how igneous rock would fit into the Bible? I think that'd be my answer.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
So I'm sure you're aware of the heat problems people bring up with the flood a lot. There's calculated issues with accelerated nuclear decay, calculated issues with fast plate tectonics. Another issue with the flood model is the amount of volcanism that you try to fit into Noah's flood is ridiculous. Just a couple of the biggest Siberian traps the biggest traps out there are 7 million square kilometers. That's like a third of Russia.
Shut him off. One topic at a time. You mentioned there's a heat problem. Okay, there is not a heat problem. The creation model that I believe fits closest to what we see for the observable evidence. The original creation had a canopy of ice 10 miles up, roughly, and when that cracked and shattered during Noah's flood, the atmosphere would expand. When you expand the atmosphere, that reduces the heat. Get a can of hairspray or spray paint or anything that's compressed air, hold the button, it'll get cold in your hand. So you have latent heat of condensation from the rain coming down. You have that heat releasing. That's how air conditioners work. Compress the fluid, let it expand, and you get cold air conditioning. So I think if the Bible says there was water above the firmament, that's where the birds fly. Read Genesis chapter 1. As this atmosphere that was compressed now is allowed to expand from, pick a number, say 10 miles out to current 40, 50, 60 at different places, that would solve the heat problem. That's much more logical than saying this whole planet fit in a dot smaller than a period. Much more logical.
So on that note, Kent, sure, that's interesting hypothesis. Have you done, or do you know anyone doing any math on that? Because you're saying numbers, so therefore you should have some math, right? Like how much expansion of the atmosphere should be able to negate XYZ heat produced by the flood. Has anyone actually done anything on that, or is it just all at that theory level?
That's a good question and a fair question. I don't know, but that's irrelevant because I'm not asking my theory to be taught as science in all the science textbooks in public school.
I know.
They want the evolution religion to be taught at taxpayer expense, and evolution's nothing but a religion. They think the whole planet fit in a dot. Don't you, Mark? Do you believe the whole world fit in a dot smaller than a period on a page?
I'll just add something quickly. Just something quickly because I know they did try to solve it. Okay. The Reid project tried to solve the heat problem. And they're from Creation Ministry, the Reid project. You can look it up. They tried to solve the heat problem and basically said that something outside their understanding must be the answer because they couldn't solve the heat problem. So that's the answer to that. They've tried. Sorry, what was the question? Call you. I'm sure you can call Creation. I mean, I don't know them at all.
Yeah.
You would probably know more than me.
Simple question. I know you'll avoid it. Do you believe the entire planet Earth came from a dot smaller than a proton in the Big Bang?
I think that there was a singularity very early on, and that is Big Bang Theory, that singularity started expanding. Yeah.
And that singularity contained the Earth, right? The whole planet was in there.
Earth wasn't formed yet, so no.
But all the molecules that make up the Earth was in that singularity. Was that singularity smaller than a dot on a page, period?
Actually, molecules hadn't really formed by then. So you're really looking at, well, to the best of our knowledge, because we can't look inside singularities like black holes, because not even light escapes from a black hole. So they think, and I'm not an expert, but they think that it was sort of quantum particles. Because most of an atom, for instance, isn't anything. Like, it's just electrons spinning outside the outside. You know this, right?
So let me rephrase the question then. Do you believe all the matter in the universe and all the energy was in that singularity? All the heat in the entire, all the stars are burning a lot of heat. All the heat that's ever been produced for 13.772 billion and 26 years now, it was all in that singularity. All the energy and all the matter.
Well, there wasn't any matter. No, Mr. Hovind, there wasn't any matter. Matter hadn't formed at that point. So no, you're wrong. Because when you get an atom, most of an atom is actually empty space. There's nothing there. There's just... Right. So if that is broken down to its component elements, there's no reason why that couldn't fit into a very small... I don't know it was a dot. I'm not sure it was that small. It could have been size of a soccer ball, size of a human. I'm not 100% sure about that. But if you take away all that space in between, then yeah, of course it can shrink down to that size. That's, you know that most of an atom is just empty space.
So you think if you took all the space out of all the atoms on the entire planet Earth and all the stars and the sun and all the planets, all of them would fit into a dot, a singularity, simply by taking the space out between the electrons and the protons and the neutrons? You think that's
when compressed to an incredible amount, yes.
Right. That would be compressed to an incredible amount. Right?
Sure. Because the gravity would compress it an incredible amount, yes.
Oh, gravity can do amazing things. Now, so you would have problems with a simple hypothesis that maybe the Bible is true and there used to be water above the firmament, like it says, and that expanded, allowing the air to expand, which would absorb the heat. We'll have to watch the video when I get to heaven. I'll try to get you the information wherever you are at that time. But to go from 10 miles out to 60 miles, I've not done the math on that. I'm sure it's possible to do. The Reid project, I don't think they started off believing in the canopy. I think the Bible teaches clearly there was water above the firmament.
I don't think many people believe in the canopy, Mr. Hovind. I think that Mr. Hovind, if you want to show that there was a canopy of water, then please provide some evidence there was a canopy of water, rather than just asserting it as a crutch for your heat problem that nobody has ever solved. Because that's one of the most baffling things I've ever heard. If there was water above the canopy, where did it go? How did it get moved? Did it vanish?
Let me answer. You're concerned about me having to provide evidence for a canopy that shattered 4,000 years ago.
Yes.
You give me evidence. I will give you $100 if you can squeeze a gallon of water into a dot smaller than a period. You want to put the whole Pacific Ocean in there. Where's the evidence that you can squeeze things like that? Where's the evidence? Not theory, evidence. I want to see somebody squeeze a gallon of water into a dot. I'll give you $100.
Okay, so regardless, you sort of didn't listen to when I said that matter hadn't formed, and that is clearly matter. So that's a straw man to start off with. Again, you're packing that straw man, Mr. Hovind. And that is, of course, whataboutism. So when I ask a question of show evidence for this claim that you've made, you've said, what about this other thing? What about this? So instead of actually keeping to one topic, you, in needing a crutch because you can't actually give any evidence, go back to something else. So one topic at a time, can you provide any evidence whatsoever that there was a canopy above the earth at this time?
Yes, I can.
What's that?
The Bible says there was water above the firmament. Here we have a book written by people who were there, explaining what was there.
Who wrote it?
You take a scientist from last year who tell you something happened 20 billion years ago, and you believe him. But you find somebody who was there, explain what happened when they were there, and you don't believe them. God said he made the earth and there was water above the firmament. Later he says the birds fly in the firmament. I think it's obvious to a kindergartner that would be the atmosphere, and there was water above the atmosphere. The Jews have always taught there was a crystalline canopy 2 or 3 fingers thick above the atmosphere. It is probably sitting at the North and South Pole now, because I think when it got shattered, super cold ice being magnetic would tend to be sucked into the poles. Drop iron filings over a magnet. Most of them get sucked into the North or South Pole. The Earth is a big magnet, you know. So I think most of what we see at the ice at the poles came from Noah's flood, from the canopy collapsing. That's why mammoths are found frozen standing up with food still in their mouth. Didn't get a chance to swallow their last bite. They were buried in a rapid, real cold snowfall from this.
Could you repeat that for me again, please? The ice is magnetic. Say that again, please.
Apparently so.
You get if you get cold enough, you check it out. Super cold ice is magnetic. You get ice cold enough, yes. There's all kinds of pictures of magnets floating on top of super cold ice. Just Google is super cold ice. I'm talking, real cold, 270 below 0 centigrade, near absolute zero. But yes, it takes on magnetic properties.
Like
outer space,
frozen, like liquid nitrogen, like dry ice.
He's talking about quantum levitation, I believe.
Solid, like dry ice. Like
I think any astronaut that's been in space would tell you outer space is real cold, near absolute zero. Where do you want to go, Fahrenheit or centigrade or Kelvin? So the canopy of ice would be in contact with that.
So
obviously, if the air pressure, if the air on the Earth was, are we here to defend the canopy theory? I thought they're supposed to be proving evolution. Where's the evidence? We all fit in a dot.
Well,
but I don't mind defending. I give my theory. I believe this is reasonable. The Bible says there was water above the firmament, and the fountains of the deep broke open. Most of the water for Noah's flood was inside the earth. It came shooting up. There's still lots of water in the earth. 10 oceans worth of water is what they said in National Pornographic, that there's water in the crust of the earth, 10 oceans worth. So I believe the Bible account, you said, where's my evidence? Listen carefully. The Bible says there was. There's my evidence. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't consider fairy tales evidence. Ken, I don't. That's just evidence. I mean, you can't tell me who wrote the Bible, whether they had any kind of basis for knowing this. Their methodology isn't put down, so we can't tell if they use some kind of methodology. What you were talking about before is quantum levitation. So basically, you would have to claim that the ice was a superconductor, and that somehow it attracted instead of repelled, which is one of the more crazy things I've heard out of you. Can you replicate this experiment? Can you cool down this ice and have it attract towards the center of the earth and somehow, be pulled into the earth somehow? Can you replicate this experiment?
Well, thank you for allowing me to present my whole seminar here on this program tonight, but my seminar nearly 20 hours long.
I didn't bring up this topic. I didn't bring this up.
Okay, I know. I didn't either. But seminar part 2 of my series, I talk about what was the pre-flood, what does the Bible say the world was like, and how that would explain why we have gigantic animals. They find giant winged insects. They couldn't possibly fly today because the air's too thin. They can't flap fast enough. Biggest dragonfly today is probably about 4 inches, but they find 30-inch dragonfly fossils. There had to be greater air pressure. The canopy would explain that. The canopy's now gone. How do you explain giant bird fossils that are found? How do you explain giant dinosaur fossils with nostrils the same size as a horse? How are they going to get enough air through a nostril that size? It can't. There had to be compressed air on the planet and greater. I found it right here. Slide 249. Okay. Listen, I have like 15 or 20 some thousand slides. It would help if you guys would ask the questions in the right order. Okay. The fact that ice is diamagnetic can be demonstrated by hanging an icicle from a very thin string, bringing a strong magnet near one end of it, from madscience.org. Magnets are made up of atoms. In extremely cold temperatures, the atoms will move more slowly and less randomly. Super cold ice is magnetic. When is Arctic ice like a magnet? Physics world. You asked me to prove it. Now you don't want it. You don't like it, do you?
Well, hey, let me just talk instead of putting words in my mouth. Do you know what diamagnetic means? Two
magnetic poles, positive and negative, north and south, whatever you want.
That's not what diamagnetic means. Nope. Diamagnetic means it induces a magnetic field in presence, and then it loses it when the magnetic field's no longer there. That's what diamagnetic means.
Here is physics world.
A diamagnetic thing does not have its own magnetic field.
Okay, the question was, can ice become magnetic? Can ice be can ice be can Arctic ice act like a magnet? Yes, it sure can. Read the article. If you get ice cold enough, it is affected by magnetic field. But here we are picking at a minor
you need to
detail.
look up the definition of diamagnetic if you want to use it in your slides.
I will. I'll look that up. But you're missing the point. Look at this. Ice can take on magnetic qualities or be affected, repelled, or attracted by magnets.
Yes.
Just like a magnet going through a coil of wire can induce an electrical current. Okay? So I believe about 10 miles up, there used to be a canopy of ice. Right now, there's a heat sink. You go up about, 6 miles, it gets down real cold. Go up to 50 miles, you have it again. This is only minus 150. The point was, they started off, where's the heat problem? I think there's a reasonable answer that probably the Earth was created just like God said, and that canopy of ice or whatever broke and allowed the atmosphere to expand. That would absorb the heat. So that's a reasonable answer to your heat problem.
It's not evidence for it, though. It's not evidence for it, though. It's not evidence for it, though. You just basically have used a post hoc explanation, sort of saying, hey, this is how I explain it away. And plus, I do have to correct you, Kent. The reason why there's no big insects isn't because they can't flap hard enough. It's because they intake oxygen through their carapaces, and the oxygen content is lower, so they can't grow as big. It's not because they... Where did you get they can't flap as hard?
There are two factors involved. Insects breathe through their skin through spiracles. They don't have nostrils and lungs like we do. Yeah, so you'd have to have greater air. You'd have to have greater air pressure and greater oxygen concentration. When they dig out find amber samples that have air bubbles in it, like Jurassic Park, they suck out the air bubbles and find it's 32% oxygen. The air we're breathing now is 21%, except over Los Angeles, it's about 2%. I think. So they think there was greater oxygen in the world at one time, and there was greater air pressure. Both of those factors would allow giant creatures to live.
Let me go, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree the percentage of oxygen, right? In the past, we had different percentages of the elements in the atmosphere. Fine. Where's the air pressure? How can you verify the air pressure difference outside of you need it for your theory?
Well, I think the evidence that we see from giant fossils that don't survive today, they find duck fossils that weighed 550 pounds and would have been bigger than a horse.
Higher air pressure relate to that? Like I'm granting you more oxygen. I want to know the air pressure.
Okay. If you surround that's how they make inflatable buildings. You pump it up full of air, and the roof, which is heavier than air, is able to stay up over the roof, over the building. How does that happen? This canvas is heavier than air. Without the air pressure inside, it would collapse. So I think there was air pressure inside a canopy of ice, and the Earth had a canopy overhead, and it was held up either by air pressure or by magnetic field.
You know,
or a combination of both.
So you know the air pressure was higher because otherwise the canopy couldn't have been held up?
No, I think I know the air pressure had to be higher because of the fossils that are found that are ginormous. They find fossil beavers 8 feet long. Why aren't there any of those today? They find fossil dragonflies with 3-foot wingspan. Why aren't there any of those today? I think anybody that knows anything about
the largest animal ever to exist exists today, the blue whale. There's never been anything larger than the blue whale, and it exists today.
Well, that's different. The blue whale breathes through air and has lungs. I'm talking about insects and animals that have to fly. They have to have greater air pressure and greater oxygen concentration.
You mentioned beavers, and that's Castorides, I believe it was, Castorides, which was the giant beaver in prehistoric times, which an elephant's bigger than that anyway.
Sure. I know there are big animals today. I understand that fine. But we do find fossils of animals that can fly that are huge by today's standards. What is the biggest bird fossil ever found that you're aware of? And is there anything like that today? Elephants don't fly, neither do whales. So tell me, where is a bird or a flying insect that is much bigger than today's counterpart? Do you agree? Dragonflies have been found that are huge compared to today.
Quetzalcoatl?
The question is about air pressure.
Yeah.
Air pressure doesn't involve the whales and the elephants. Where is the evidence that you have of a huge bird or huge insect being able to fly in today's air? What would be the limit? Why could we not have a...
This has gone so far off the track. What does this have to do with air pressure?
Grasping at straws.
What does any of this have to do with air pressure? How would air pressure make things bigger? More oxygen, I can see that. But how is applying more pressure to something going to make something larger?
It's just oxygen intake, Kent. That's all it is. Oxygen intake. Things with more oxygen can grow bigger. That's it. That's all that there is.
And we already gave you that.
Yes. Okay. Are airplanes limited how high they can fly based upon oxygen intake for the engine and air pressure to let it levitate and fly through the air? Sure, they are. All of them are. And they get all excited when they get a new ceiling. Wow, this new jet can go to 80,000 feet. That's great. But there are limits. But we're way off track. You guys claim there's a heat problem. I'm saying there isn't a heat problem. It can be resolved. Where's the problem you guys have of turning an amoeba into a whale? You got these stupid family trees that say everything
one topic
is related.
At a time, Kent. One topic at a time.
We're way off topic now talking about the heat problem. It's not my job to prove creation.
Well, maybe you should read the RATE project from the Creation Ministries. The RATE project. Read it.
I don't care what the RATE people believe. I'll look. If they don't believe in a canopy, I think they're wrong. But you guys want all of us to be paid, all of us to pay to teach this kind of nonsense to the kids in school.
You got no evidence.
Ogre, do you believe you are related to a ladybug?
Sure. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Mark, are you related to a pine tree?
Very distantly, yeah.
Oh, okay. And a worm? This is what the kids are taught.
Incredibly distantly, yeah.
Hey, where is the evidence for this stupid family tree they're teaching the kids?
So I brought it up. The ERVs and chromatone. Just because you don't know, you didn't have an answer for it. That's the thing, Ken. And you can't answer it. You can just wave your hands away and say, hey, because my book says, then my book's true. And that's not an argument. That's not evidence of anything. It's just you believe in your book. Well, great, but it doesn't, demonstrate anything.
I think all of these creatures we see on this chart had a common designer, and God designed it where the brown cow can eat the green grass and give the white milk, and I eat it and get the blonde hair, because it's all part of a grand design rather than all a common ancestor. That's just as logical and scientific, but you guys want to think all the many forms of life are connected to a common ancestor.
Can you show me God creating a brown cow? Can you show me?
No.
Well, you can't show me God creating a brown cow then. Under your own standards of evidence, where you always say, show me something turning into another thing. If we can't show you that, you can't show me a God doing anything. So you have no evidence for that at all.
Mark, fair enough. Mark, I will ask God on Judgment Day to show you the video of him creating the cow before he judges you.
Oh, no, really? Yeah, that really doesn't worry me, Ken. I don't believe in it.
Okay, it doesn't yet. I know, Mark, but it will one day. Okay, I'm trying to warn you.
I don't think it will. I think it's all just baloney. That's what I think. I think it's just baloney and scaremongering and trying to make people afraid so you can sort of get money off of them. It's not,
I'm not trying to get money off of anybody. If you want to believe there's no God, if you want to believe you're related to a strawberry and a banana and a ladybug, well, you're welcome to believe that. But don't call that science.
It is science.
That's a SpongeBob. That's a religion.
It's science.
Nobody sees any animal ever. Nobody's ever seen any animal on this family tree produce offspring other than their kind. You always go back to, well, billions of years it takes for this to happen. That takes it out the realm of science. Science is what we can observe and study and test. There is no observable evidence of a cow ever producing a non-cow or coming from a non-cow. There's been human experiments going on for thousands of years with farmers raising cows. They always get a cow of some kind, and they're limited. They try to get bigger cows, smaller cows, more milk, more beef. They're always cow every time, and they're limited. They've got cows that jump now 6 feet.
Can you outline? Well, you're saying there's a limit in making this claim, so that's a claim you're making that you'd have to demonstrate. What is the mechanistic limit for stopping a cow from becoming evolving past where it is? Because microevolution exists, you admit that. So what is the actual limiter, the mechanism used to limit these organisms from evolving past where you think they do? What is that?
Well, if you look at real science, which is what we can observe, everybody who's ever bred dogs will tell you dogs produce dogs. The limit seems to be you get smaller dogs and bigger dogs, but
no,
you don't get. I think
I'm not asking where the limit seems to be to you, Ken. I'm not asking that. I'm asking, you're saying there is something that limits that genetic code from mutating to a point where it is no longer the same species. What is that limit? What is the limiter? What's the mechanism?
Right. The science would tell us, real science would say, it's observable. It's been tested millions of times by dog breeders all over the world. The limit for dogs, I would bet you $50 they will never get a dog bigger than the state of Texas. Would you?
So you
agree
don't have
there's
an
a
answer.
limit on dog size? That's my answer. Is there a
Yeah,
limit
you don't
on
have an
dog
answer.
size?
So when I ask you what is this limiting mechanism, you say there's a limit.
I don't need to tell you because it's obvious to anybody observing.
No,
it.
then it's really a baseless claim. Then it's just a baseless claim. If you say there is something that is limiting these organisms from changing to a certain degree, and then I ask you, well, what is the mechanism that is doing that? What is the thing that is stopping them doing that? And you say, no, something is stopping them. That isn't answering the question. That's just restating your assertion that there is something stopping it. What is the mechanism that is stopping them?
I think there is genetic code that stops it. I think humans have been trying to run faster for a long time. I don't know what the 100-yard dash record is now, probably 9 seconds or less. Do you think they'll ever run the 100-yard dash in 0.01 seconds? No. There's a limit. It's a mechanical limit. There's a limit in oxygen intake. There's a limit with dogs by their gene code. They can't seem to get outside of dog. They breed them for all kinds of crazy things. My wife has a pug and paid money for it. But, well, I don't know why, but it's still a dog, barely, but it's a dog. All we've seen is, yes, there are limits to the dog kind. There's limits in their size through physical limits. What are there animals as small as a flea? Why don't they get a dog as small as a flea? There are animals that small, like a flea. So yes, there are limits. There's animals as big as an elephant, but they can't get a dog that big. You keep trying. I don't have to give the limits. It's not my job. I'm not asking for creation.
So there's physical limits why it can't get small as a flea or large as an elephant kind of thing, because there are physical restrictions on what mammals can actually process. If you manage to get a dog as small as a flea, you wouldn't call it a dog anymore. It would be a descendant of a dog and called something else. I mean, the smallest mammal is about the size of your fingertip, a bat, I believe it is. But you said there was something in the genetic code that is the limiter. What is that, and where is it in the genetic code?
Well, the genetic code is incredibly complex. Like I said, more complex than the space shuttle. So
yes,
the dog genetic code always makes another dog. Always. All we've ever observed, you can imagine, you imagine that
but
a dog
where is it in the genetic code? What part of the genetic code is the limiter? What actually causes that limit in the genetic code?
I don't know. There are genetic code limits on size.
So you're assuming it's in there somewhere.
You know how complex that code is? Have you read the whole DNA code of a dog? I don't go around reading DNA codes of dogs. I don't. But I know this. I'd bet you $5 if you crossbreed any dogs in the world.
You're claiming there's a part of a dog's genetic code that will limit it should it try and grow or if it's bred and tries to grow above a certain size. But you can't tell me what that genetic code is, where it is in the genome, or point to any kind of specificity about it at all. So this is what we call a wild-ass assertion.
Okay, now, do you realize how dumb this whole line of thought is? You believe there's no limit.
Oh, yeah, we know.
Oh, yeah, we know your line of thinking is pretty...
You believe the dog came from a rock, don't you?
Yeah, and Jamie wanted to jump in here too. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie.
Yeah, let me jump in here for a second, because he's saying that he wants the exact piece of the genetic code that shows the limiting factor.
Well, the limiter, yeah.
Right, but see, here's the thing. Even your scientists will admit that they don't know everything about 100% of the genetic code. We're still learning more and more every day about the genetic code. Sure. So the fact that we haven't found it yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. However,
doesn't mean it does.
Where this argument tends to lean more towards creation is we can observe the limitations. Okay.
Right.
Because here's what happens. Let's say we have 2 mutts, right? We have 2 mutts. Over the generations, we breed those mutts in 2 different directions to get the Great Dane and the Chihuahua. But what happens with the Great Dane and the Chihuahua? The Chihuahua ends up having certain health defects, like I think they have nasal problems, heart problems.
Do you know why that is?
Kidney problems. Same thing with the Great Dane. The Great Dane also has these same genetic problems. So
do you know why that is?
Further and further from the original,
because of mutations,
right? Well, that's what I'm saying, though. But you guys want to rely on mutations to create everything in the world and it be successful in that process. So, however, that's the thing, though. What we're saying,
Jamie, come on, dude. You've got to allow us to respond.
No, you got to let me finish my statement. I haven't even finished the statement. As we
Okay.
get farther away from the original part of that gene code, we see defects, and that is observable evidence that there is somewhere eventually that it will get to a point where it won't be able to continue on and survive. So yes, we do see us getting closer and closer to the limits of the gene pool.
All right. So again, there wasn't any specificity there, but the problem with your example is look at the size of wolves. Wolves are much larger than most dog breeds, but they're supposed to be original. So the dogs getting bigger and bigger isn't necessarily a thing, and you can breed small dogs that don't have this level of problem. German Shepherds, very standard sized breed, still the same amount of problems. So
And the
Hey,
reason why.
it's less that there's some magical part of the genome that's caused these issues, and
Mhm.
more
I'm not
that
saying it's
humans do a
magical, I'm
bad
just saying we
job of
haven't discovered
breeding
it yet.
and breed in
Well,
bad traits. That's
the
why pugs
reason-
exist that Ken hates so much.
The reason why it happens is because when we breed dogs that are very close to one another's genetic sequence because we want those traits. So basically what we're doing with dogs is we're inbreeding them, essentially, right? We're inbreeding those dogs. That's why they have genetic problems. There's not some limiter on it like trying to stop dogs from becoming a certain thing. And as Orge pointed out, German Shepherds have the same problems. Now, that is why it happens, not some, limiting thing that's going on kind of thing. That is not what's happening, Jamie. Now, the whole idea that scientists don't know everything, so there could be something, that's true. We don't know everything. But scientists don't go running around making the type of claims that Kent does. He claims there's
exactly
a limiting
what you do,
function
because the
in the
claim you
genome.
make-
Hang on.
You're making the claim
he
that
claims,
dog
no,
came
Jamie,
from-
let me finish.
Don't
Let
let
me
him finish
finish.
his
Let me
thought.
finish.
Remember,
Let me
you finish
finish.
your thought?
They don't go around saying there's a limiter in the genes, and then when asked for where it is in the sequence, they can't provide evidence. What they do is they say, hey, we found this in the genome, that in the genome. I mean, you guys hand wave it away, but when you ask for the evidence, they provide it to you. They say, hey, here is the segments and the genomes for XYZ creatures, and we have found these links between them. They are not just saying, oh, it's got to be in there somewhere because we don't know everything. That's ridiculous.
Well,
All right,
no,
let
what
me
I'm
just-
saying though is that we can observe it though. We can observe that as you get closer to what we would consider the ends of the boundaries that are acceptable within that gene pool, there's more and more problems. Now,
You didn't listen to anything
we're
I
making
said,
the
did
claim.
you?
So look, here's the thing. We're making the claim that there's limits to the gene pool, and we can see from an observation that might
response to
that
this.
might be a valuable answer. However, you're making the claim that a dog at one point in time came from a fish, and then you want to rely on things like pieces of DNA that like ERVs, for example, that
Yes.
doesn't say anything about a fish turning into a dog. Your
Sure
claim
does.
is
Quick
much
response,
more
Mark.
wild
Hey,
than
Mark,
our
hold on.
claim.
Quick response.
Sure.
So, again, the lack of specificity. The data shows that the further you get away, what is that data? Can you verify me? Find that dog that, in your opinion, is the furthest away, and show
Wait a
that
minute,
is the
Orge.
most screwed up.
Do you
and then
believe you're
find
related
dogs.
to mosquito, Orge?
I bet somebody could read, who was good at English, could read a couple books and say, I think these two books are written by the same author. That's true. And they might find another family of books and say, no, these 6 books were written by this same author. I think that'd be a good field of research. Now, does that mean the 2 authors are the same? No. Shakespeare can write some plays, and somebody else can write some books, and somebody else can write some books. So yes, I agree. You're related to your mother. No question about that. Does that prove you're related to a mosquito? Do you believe you're related to a mosquito, Erica?
I do.
Do you believe you're related to a mosquito, Erica?
I do. And I'd love to get to that in a little bit. I actually have a slide for, I love visuals similar to you.
Yeah, that's called an argument from incredulity. It's not a real argument.
Done,
You've got
Ken,
nothing
well
there.
done.
Hang on. That's because it is incredulous. It's dumb
No,
to believe
you're
you're related to a
incredulous.
mosquito.
You're
Okay, well, thank you.
incredulous.
But I think you are also. So we're even. Now listen.
Yeah, it's like
I'd
a flat earther
I'd
laughing that the earth is a
I would
sphere.
like you guys to develop a breed. If you think there's no limit on dogs, okay, or chickens, let's say. There's 500 kinds of chickens now. We got 35 of them here at our farm. I would like somebody to crossbreed a chicken with a strawberry because I would like strawberry flavored chicken.
That's a straw man. Yeah, see, these
That's
aren't
all I'm saying.
arguments. They're just being childish. I mean, you can be childish all you want, but they're not arguments. They're not rational sort of demonstrations of anything, and you haven't produced any evidence at all. You've just sort of
You're not giving us
hand-waved.
rational arguments either.
Yeah, I've given you all the evidence and the strongest evidence for it, and
Pointing
Kent
out
doesn't
flaws
know
in the
how it works.
hypothesis, and you responded with "nuh-uh."
Uh-huh.
I mean, accept the criticism, dude. You should be bringing something besides "I think this" to the table. And
I mean,
a good answer would be, yeah, that'd be cool to look into. Or I hope someone does. Or maybe let's talk to someone, a creationist scientist. Hey, could you look into this stuff? But instead you're like, no, because, well, obviously. Like, that's a good response. Why?
I just can't believe you've been on this thing for, what, 20 years, 30 years, and still you've got nothing. Nothing to show us.
All right. Can I jump
insane.
Yeah, and
go
also
for it,
Merritt too. I know he's been waiting for a while too. So Merritt, you can jump in after that.
All right. So I guess I was supposed to have a debate over there, modern day debate, but Aaron Raw and T Jump never responded. I think somebody snitched on them as to what argument I use. And I'm going to use that argument right here since I didn't get to use it on modern day debate.
Oh, it's bubble. I didn't even notice that.
Hey, it's happening over again.
Is this the dog argument?
Oh, you're familiar with it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so evolution says that according to, well, if evolution is true, and you evolutionists say that the Dalmatian evolved from the gray wolf, well, give to me a specimen that existed. Just give me the name of this transitional between the gray wolf and the Dalmatian.
Cast-in cave dog.
Oh, okay. I'm willing to bet you $1 million, Mark Reid. $1 million. That's wrong. You willing to take me up on that deal?
Sure.
All right then. You're on, buddy, because you just lost. Because guess what? Grayson used the same example on me, and he lost. So you're gonna owe me $1 million.
Sure. Whatever
All
my
right,
I'll
I'll bring it in a second. I'll bring it in a second. You guys
What's
can
that
check.
hairless Mexican dog that's like one of the oldest dog breeds
Chihuahua
out there? Yeah, like, I mean, I suppose that'd be another one, right? The first domesticated dogs would be the ones closest to what you're talking about.
Mr. Hovind, do you
Google
think
Scholar.
that dogs didn't evolve from wolves? Do you think they're two different created kinds, as you would call them?
If the question is for me, I would say all we've ever observed, and that's what science is dogs make baby dogs every time. And there seems to be a limit. Whether they reached or not doesn't matter. I know this, if you turned all those kinds of dogs they've created out in the woods, 95% of them would not survive. The Chihuahuas wouldn't last one day. They'd be hawk bait, okay? So the fact that we can now babysit them and make them survive, you guys like to talk about evolution and natural selection. Well, nature would select all of them to go back to something more like a wolf. Almost none of the dogs that we've created would survive in nature. So the whole idea, but again, the evidence shows dogs produce dogs without exception. It's your imagination that a dog came from an amoeba. That's not science.
Do you understand how domestication works?
All right, one second.
Straw man, Mark. Straw man. Go ahead.
Well,
right,
domestication,
Mark,
they
wait,
don't have to
1 second.
survive in the wild. They're domesticated. Humans take care of them. So that's just baloney, that what you just said.
Okay, Mark Reid. This is on the Karstein cave dog. Okay, we're gonna go down here, and I'm gonna need you to read this.
Can you give me a paper rather than just a news article?
Can you read? This is based on the paper.
I can't read that. I can't read.
Okay,
but
I'll read
the new
I'll
study's
read it for
genetic
you.
analysis suggests that the particular sample is an ancient sister lineage to modern dogs and wolves, not a direct answer. Have you got that study? Could you give me that study?
Yes, this
please?
is the exact same study.
That's not a study. That's an article. That's an article.
This article is based on the study. So you owe me $1 million, Mark.
Yeah, just keep dreaming, dude. Keep dreaming.
Try again.
So do you want to bet me $1 million that dogs evolved from wolves?
Go ahead. Present. You want to present another specimen? You want to give another try?
Yeah, there's some things I did have them bookmarked. but I can look it up.
So I just threw a book in the side chat all about what the heck is it called? Molecular Evolution of the Dog Family from '93. I haven't read it. I don't know crap about dogs, but a quick Google Scholar search showed up plenty of things about dog genetics and evolution. So,
well, Orgy, you're free to shoot me the name of the specimen.
it's in the side. It's in the heck is the StreamYard chat. It's in the StreamYard chat.
Well, I don't want to read through a whole paper from '93, but you are free to shoot me the name of the specimen. You think it's a transition?
Oh, you want the actual specimen? Ah, fun.
Yeah, because
30 seconds. We gave a bunch of tours today on the side-by-side. I've been drinking water for 2 hours. I'm going to go potty while you guys finish this argument. I'll be right back, okay?
But see, I suspect somebody told or cheated this argument, and this is why they didn't show up to the modern day.
No,
debate,
it's because it's such a dumb argument, dude. Seriously.
Oh, Mark, you couldn't
You're
answer.
just about the only person I know that thinks that dogs were not domesticated
Well, Mark,
from wolves.
why can't you answer this question?
No, Bubbles too scary.
I just put a something in the side chat. How wolf became dog.
Just give me the name.
No. How wolf became God. No. You want to use articles for your evidence? That's an article for mine. You owe me $1 million.
I just want the name of the transitioner, Mark. I should simply look up the name of this transitioner.
It's got a code. It's got a code, not a name, because they code things like that. I believe there was another couple.
Oh, you're just gonna give me numbers? Oh, you're just gonna be like,
that's how they track those things.
It's just data.
Well,
Too much data.
It's dogs and wolves, okay? But
it's just data. Yeah, no, it's just writing on a page, Bubbles. This is the stupidest argument I've ever heard.
You guys got nothing, Mark. You guys got nothing.
Yeah, so this is why nobody wants to talk to you.
We have an entire field.
Look, I've got my article. If articles can be evidence for you, articles can be evidence from me. There's an article in there. You lose. Sorry, no, Bubbles, you lose. If you want to use an article as evidence, there's an article there. You lose. Because my evidence is the same as yours. No. You're getting an article. There it is. You lose.
I win.
This is
okay. Can I throw something?
Keep telling yourself that, buddy. Keep telling yourself that, mate. Jamie, do you think that dogs were not domesticated from wolves? Do you think that?
I will.
Bring it. You ain't got it. I win.
I'm sorry my question upset you, but that wasn't my question. But I'll move on. Thank you.
Yeah, so I actually never said that, Mark. So now you're putting words in my mouth.
I asked you a question. That wasn't putting words in your mouth. I said, do you think that dogs were not domesticated from wolves? Do you think they were created kinds? Dogs and wolves.
No, I can absolutely see dogs coming from wolves. So I'm not denying that at all.
They can interbreed. But it's obvious.
We're arguing wolves and dogs, which we can see observational similarities between these two, right?
Well, we've moved on. No, Jamie, we've moved on. Bubbles thinks that dogs were not domesticated from wolves.
Well, then he can think that all he wants. I'm not making that claim. My claim is you want us to give you the exact piece of DNA that says there's a limit. But what I want you to
said
give me
there
is
was a piece of DNA.
Right. Well, that's what you were saying. That's what he was saying. He was saying, I want to know the exact DNA that shows a limit within these kinds. Well, my question is, where's the exact DNA that shows that a fish can go into a bird or into a dog or whatever? You want to ask us for these hyper specifics.
Yeah.
You have to also provide those.
Jamie.
No, I can answer
Jimmy.
that. I can actually
Hey, Mark,
answer that.
hold up. You've been going a lot, Mark. Let me.
Yeah, sure.
So are you saying, so I understand what your version of evidence is. Are you saying if I showed you the section of the human genome that we can trace back to, say, fish or something like that, or the common ancestor that was more fish-like, then that would be evidence to you?
No, what I'm saying is I want you to find the exact gene that allows a fish to turn into something other than a fish, that then allows that new creature to turn into something other than that creature until it eventually gets to a dog. Because you're asking us for hyper specifics, and then you can't give those same hyper specifics.
Okay.
Similarities.
Yeah, that phrasing
is. I get it, dude. The way you're phrasing the question doesn't make sense to me, but the way I phrase my question to you does, because, for example, humans do have limiters as the color of our eyes, right? There's certain genes that tell, and we know the exact gene that says eye color. So your eye color doesn't come outside of those genes, right? So if there's a limiter on height or some characteristic of a dog, those characteristics come. What the heck is the biology term? Endomorph. What is it? Where it's like your genes are one thing and your expression of them is different.
Epigenetics.
What is that? Well, anyways, your genes dictate the expression. Or if the expression's limited, therefore the genes should limit that expression. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but I feel like you're trying to jump over to another topic because, again, we're saying that we can observe limitations. We can observe limitations, right? And you just admitted that. So since we can observe limitations, show me how these limitations don't stop a fish from turning into a dog, because that's what you teach. You say that an amoeba turned into a fish turned into
I could try to
a rat
that.
or whatever, and then it eventually got to a dog. So where is the hyper specifics to prove that
coming from?
I don't know. Somebody's got something going on.
Okay. So, Jamie, I don't know if we've talked a lot before. My field ain't biology. I really don't know it. But
there we go again. So I thought you're supposed to know everything in order to talk on any topic. Because
I'm continuing. I'm continuing here. So, but to my understanding, yeah, there are certain parts of a fish genetics that dictate the way the fish grows, and the fish don't suddenly pop out a foot because there is no genetics for a fish to suddenly pop out a foot. You have to change to the genetic, which is what evolution is. So that's why your question sounds like a misnomer.
I'm sorry, I think your mic is breaking up because I could barely understand you. You're skipping.
I think it's coming from somewhere else. I don't think it's coming from Jorge.
Yeah, because I'm in a sealed room, so it's not my mic that's making that sound. Someone's mic is making an echo sound.
I think it's either Kent's or Praise's maybe, because everybody else was muted except for you, Praise, and Kent.
I'll mute.
I think it was Praise.
Yeah, Praise.
Still going on?
Yeah.
Sounds
okay, so what was that?
Come on.
Yes, what was that last statement you said, Ogre?
So the statement was, and again, I'm not expressing anything new here, right? But a fish doesn't turn into a human. Like a fish doesn't grow a human foot because the genetics that say make human foot are not present in the fish genome. Because, and again, that's the whole point of evolution, is that if you alter the genome over time, eventually that human foot will show up in the process. So snapshot moment, no human foot. But if you let evolution take its course, human foot. Is there a section there that shows that difference to your satisfaction? Perhaps. I don't think, if I Google fish with a human foot, I don't think I'm going to get it, right? But
well, that's not what I'm asking, though. I'm asking for, see, my thing is, you guys want to put the burden of hyper specifics on us. So when we say that
I think we should share
there seems to be limitations within the dogs, you respond by saying, I want to know the exact DNA that puts that limitation. However, when I say, show me the exact DNA that allows a fish to eventually turn into something else. And I understand that your theory says it'll happen with very small gradual change over millions and millions of years. I understand that. But what I'm saying, though, is I want to see the hyper-specific DNA that allows that to happen over millions of years.
Yeah, let me talk on it.
Hold on, Pete. So I want to incorporate Kent back in here, too, but also Marin's been sitting quietly for a while, too, if Crimson here wanted to jump in.
Can I just address that quickly and why it's such a flawed question?
Yeah, so make it quick, make it with...
Yeah, it's because the mechanism that we're talking about is mutation, and there's no restriction of where mutation happens in the genome. Like there isn't like one part that says, hey, this part will mutate. It can happen anywhere throughout the genome, and we've observed that to happen. So the entire thing is misplacement. It's kind of moving the goalpost, because first you asked for evidence that fish are related to humans, and then you said, well, what's the genetic sequence that does it? The evidence that fish are related is human endogenous retrovirus H/L, which we find in fish. It's a human. We find it in humans as well.
All right. So
okay. we get back to the ERVs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not I'm willing to bet that if I spent the next week studying that one specific ERV,
Uh-huh.
it's not going to prove that a fish will turn into a human over millions of years. And that's
No,
what
never
I'm
actually
getting
tried.
at.
Do it and report back.
Yeah, do it and report back.
But yeah, like Ogre said, I think it's safe to say that we both need to bring the data. If you want to make a hyper-specific claim that everything can come from one amoeba over millions of years, you're going to have to bring a lot of data to prove that. Whereas we may not have the data on what exact gene causes limitations, but we see limitations. You admit that we see limitations. And then one more thing I wanted to mention that Mark said was he said that the mechanism is mutations, right?
Mhm.
But earlier, you specifically said that mutations are actually hindrance to all of this. So mutations are
What do you
bad,
mean?
but they will eventually create everything in the world.
I didn't say they're a hindrance. I mean, some mutations can be bad, yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, there can be detrimental mutations, but there can be beneficial ones as well. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so now you admit that there's bad mutations and good mutations.
What do you mean
But
now
what's
I
funny is
admit?
when we
I never said there wasn't.
Earlier on
No.
in the debate, or earlier on in the discussion, you said that there's these mutations within the dogs are what cause all these
That's
problems.
called inbreeding, yes.
Okay, but here's
You know
my
what
thing, though.
inbreeding is, right, Jamie?
I know what inbreeding is, and I think you might be a part of that. So
Does
let
it
me go
screw
ahead
up?
and finish
Oh,
my
it's just
statement here.
insults now. Yeah, well, I mean...
Yeah, you want to insult, we can insult too. But see, here's
I
my
didn't
thing, though.
insult! How did I
I've been
insult?
talking here too. Hold on.
What
So
the
I
hell?
think we're going to try to wind this down a little bit too, and incorporate Merritt to Crimson because he's been waiting for a while.
Wow,
So go
nice
ahead, Merritt,
people
if
you
you
have
want
on
to
here.
talk
Real
about it.
Praise,
Christians
mute your
right here.
microphone, dude. Sounds like you're in an aquarium.
Yeah, that kind of does. It's distorting.
That's a good description. We can
Good
agree
evening,
on
Dr.
that. Look
Hovind.
at that. We found something that we can agree on.
Good evening, Dr. Hovind. My name is Merritt. I'm a Christian who leans towards the Young Earth model, and I'd like to first express my gratitude for the work you've done over the years. It's helped to strengthen my faith at various times in my Christian walk. And so I just have two brief questions concerning evolution, and I was hoping you could answer, and I will listen to your response. The first is, as a Christian, I sometimes encounter evolutionists that demand an answer from me in my rejection of evolution, as well as holding on to a young Earth model. They demand for an explanation from me as to how I could harmonize my rejection of evolution and yet incorporate what they call hyper-evolution with certain species of animals that were expected to have survived the flood through Noah's Ark and then repopulating the earth, such as, for example, the dogs that these gentlemen were just talking about. How you can start with just the pair and then end up with so many varieties within a relatively short period of time. And the second question is about mitochondrial Eve, which I understand points back to a singular female ancestry for the human population in the world today. And I was just curious if you have heard anything that has been done in this same area of study pertaining to other animals that might point to a singular maternal ancestor, say for cattle or cats, maybe, or anything like that. So thank you again for being here, Dr. Hovind, and I'll listen to your answer.
All right. Well, second question first. As far as the research been done on that, I would steer you to ICR.org, Institute for Creation Research.org. Frank Sherwin, good friend of mine, works there. That's the kind of stuff they do, the more technical stuff. I purposely tried to keep our ministry simple. We had kids groups come today. They had a blast. We teach it down where everybody can understand it. We're not trying to impress anybody with all the big words, okay? We just try to make it real simple. Dogs produce dogs. So I would steer you to ICR.org or Answers in Genesis in Kentucky. They do a great work on this kind of thing. So if you want the more technical stuff, as far as mitochondrial DNA and stuff like that. But as far as the variety in 4,400 years, I was speaking about the variety of dogs at a seminar one time, and this lady said in the Q&A time in the audience, she said, my family, my grandfather started, or great-grandfather started a dog kennel, I believe it was. We've been in the dog breeding business for 100 years. She said, I can tell you right now, you could give us some generic mutts. You pick them out anywhere. Give us any mutts you want. We can selectively breed those dogs and in less than 100 years, create every breed there is today. So I think animals getting off of Noah's Ark 4,400 years ago and then diversifying into what we see today is a minor problem compared to everything coming from a dot smaller than a period, and then Earth cooling down to be a hard rocky crust, and all life forms coming from a rock. Evolution teaches we came from a rock. So I don't think there's a problem with all the dogs coming from a dog off Noah's Ark or wolf, whatever it was. That's a minor problem compared to everything coming from a rock and fitting in a singularity. I think that religion is so stupid that I'm baffled anybody could possibly believe that and sleep at night, but okay. So yes, I think the varieties we've seen in everything, there are varieties, I've got a bunch of them here, varieties, I think there's 4,000 varieties of potatoes now that man has developed, okay? They probably had a common ancestor called a potato. There are how many varieties of strawberries? A bunch of them. I think they had a common ancestor. So the creation view is they always bring forth after their kind. That's what the Bible said would happen, and that's all we've ever observed. Real science, here they are. Real science, what we can observe. Alt DV 470. Okay. 50 varieties of watermelons, itty bitty ones, great big ones. They're still bringing forth after their kind, still a watermelon. 1,000 varieties of mangoes, bring forth after their kind. 2,500 varieties of apples. They should always bring an apple. But these guys like Mark and these guys want to put an apple on a chart with a line connected back to a cow. Do you think an apple and a cow had a common ancestor? Oh,
is this even on the questions? This isn't even on the questions asked.
The question was, what did all these varieties come in 4,400 years? No problem. I think they can get off the ark and make their. Most of the varieties we see today have been developed by man, by some farmer, because he wants more milk or more beef or have his cow stand the heat better. Most of the varieties that man has produced would not survive in nature. Leave them alone. Most of the varieties of dogs wouldn't survive. If you turned them all loose in Alaska, only the wolf type animal would survive. Turn them all loose in the desert, only the dingo type dog would survive. Nature does select. It doesn't create anything, it selects something already there. So I think it's common sense. Of course, bananas are really been selected by humans to develop way away from what they originally were, but they're still a plant and they still have a similar gene code. They selected part of the gene code to survive. 17,000 varieties of wasps, 3,000 varieties of tomatoes, 15,000 now. So yes, man can take this incredible gene code and manipulate it to get bigger, smaller, juicier tomatoes or sweeter tomatoes, whatever they want. And if tomatoes are fruit now, I'm wondering if ketchup is a smoothie, but that's a different story. So God said they'd bring forth after their kind. Are there any, can you show me the science where something has happened that this isn't true? You can show me a chart and imagine it happened long ago and far away, but that's not science. There is no science to refute that verse right there. They will bring forth after their kind. That's all anybody in human history has ever observed. Everything else is imagination. That's all you evolutionists have. And go back and count how many times tonight these guys talked about, well, if you had enough time, time is your God, and it's your enemy, actually, because time wears things down. The gene code builds up more problems. How many defective genes do the humans carry now that you pass on? So anyway, yes, to answer your question, I think it's simple to say all the varieties of everything we see, whether it be tomatoes or wasps or apples or mangoes or watermelon, could easily come from two getting off of Noah's Ark. Of course, the
Thank you
plants
very
didn't
much
have
for
to
that. It was enlightening to know that people can breed new varieties of dogs in such a short period of time, and the rest of what you said certainly makes sense. So thanks again for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So from the evolutionary standpoint, the idea of hyperevolution is that if you say, oh, all of the say eagles are all of one kind of thing, or all of these squirrels are all of one kind, or all of these things, a lot of them have different amounts of chromosomes and can't interbreed kind of thing. So there's definitely problems there. I think it is the bald eagle has 66 chromosomes and the golden eagle has like 62. There's no way that they can evolve like that in the time period given. It's just not possible according to the evolutionary model. They are too different to be able to do that. And we can see that with the genetic code. We can see that with everything that goes into them. Now, mitochondrial Eve is not...
Let me answer.
Well, I let you talk, Kent,
Okay,
about random stuff
you
for
actually made a
ages.
statement. Mark, would you please shut up? Okay, you
Well,
made a statement.
I
would
was
like to
talking.
answer.
What are you talking about?
You're going on to a new topic now. Let me answer about the eagles.
You went on to
okay?
10 million new topics just then. You brought up bananas. What does bananas have to do with anything?
Maybe Noah took 4 eagles on the ark.
Okay. How did they evolve to eat hay to meat?
Well, if the chromosome number is really different, and if that is true that the chromosome number is different, and they can't, there's, I forget how many, 60 kinds of eagles now. Okay, I don't know if you had 2 eagles on the ark, but you believe all the eagles came from a rock. That's what's dumb.
That's your response. How did the eagles eat hay and survive on hay, which you've claimed, and then change until a carnivore after they got off the ark? And your response is a rock.
No. You asked initially, how did these eagles get different chromosomes? You're the one changing topics, okay? How did they get different chromosomes? I don't know. But
no, I'm using that as an example of too much evolution in too short a time. That's ridiculous.
Maybe, hey, Mark, maybe chromosomes confused. Yeah, okay. So I don't know. It's a good question.
Sure, they can.
Eagle. Now, as far as going from a plant eater, I never said they ate hay. The animals before the flood, everything was vegetarian. Maybe they ate fruit.
What did they eat?
A lot of birds eat fruit.
Eagles
eat fruit today. A lot of birds
hay.
eat fruit today. Would you please shut him up when it's my turn to talk? Who's running this microphone? Praise I am. Shut his mic off. He won't stop interrupting. Okay. A lot of birds eat fruit today. We got a bunch of birds here. Chickens will eat anything, okay? The Bible says before the flood came, everything was vegetarian. After the flood, God said, Noah, now you're allowed to eat meat, and the animals are going to be afraid of you. But going from a fruit-eating eagle to a meat-eating eagle is a real minor change comparing going from a rock or a bacteria to an eagle, which is what you believe. You do believe the eagle came from a rock, don't you, Mark?
Yeah, so now you're changing the subject. So this is what aboutism, this is sort of trying to distract from a whole idea of a eagle's digestive tract and entire biology, eating fruit for some reason, and the sucrose that comes in that fruit and being able to digest that, to being an oblate carnivore that can only survive on meat. If you think that's going to evolve in a couple of thousand years, I'm really sorry, but you are out of your mind. That is 2 totally different digestive systems that you're talking about, which is why we talk about hyper evolution after the ark. That's why we say it, because the reason given that they were all vegetarian, then suddenly changed to oblate carnivores, is kind of hard for the evolutionary model to even, that's ridiculous. Now, the whole idea of mitochondrial Eve. I want to address the mitochondrial Eve question as well.
No, you're changing subject. I want to answer about the eagle.
Okay, go.
I just Googled right now. Can eagles eat fruit? Look what it said. Eagles are pure carnivores and do not typically eat fruit. However, some species of eagles, like the African vulture, fish eagle, and bald eagle, have been known to feed on palm fruits.
Yeah.
Just Google, if you know how to use Google, type in, can eagles eat fruit?
Yeah.
They still can sometimes. Now, going
No. Some eagles can, some can't.
It's minor.
No, some eagles can eat fruit, some can't. Some eagles can eat fruit, some can't. But that still necessitates a change for some of those eagles to... It says oblate carnivore there. They can only eat meat. It says some eagles eat fruit. That's the whole point.
Whoa, hold on,
evolution
Mark. Hold on, not
explains that perfectly.
Okay,
hold on. I'm looking at a bird watching website, so they do a pretty good job of studying birds, I would say. And it says eagles have been observed to eat both meat and plant-based foods.
Yes.
This means that they can technically be classified as omnivores. These raptors typically hunt and consume small mammals, reptiles, and fish, but they also have been known to eat eggs, fruits, nuts, and berries.
Yeah, which ones?
And if you go and watch one of my Bible studies, which you won't, obviously, but I actually list a couple of animals that they were thought to be only carnivores, but then when you actually research, you find out that, for example, vultures, you think that they would only eat decayed animals. That's the common consensus.
Yeah,
they actually eat
vultures.
Pumpkins. They're very popular with eating pumpkins.
Yeah,
so I'm just showing you that
vultures.
all of these animals
I got a question for Ken.
carnivores, they also can eat.
Well,
fruits
I'd
and
like to
vegetables.
address the mitochondrial Eve as well at some point, because that was a question.
I got a question
Jump
for
to the
Ken.
next subject.
I am. We've been going for 2.5 hours. I'm tired.
Oh,
Mark doesn't want to
you're
hear
scared.
anything. I want to
Scared.
hear him talk. Can we do another debate another night? I'm tired. Okay, I've had a long day. I had to get up before breakfast. It was awful. But go ahead. Can we shut it down? At least for me, anyway. Get somebody else
Absolutely,
in there.
Ken. I appreciate your time. You did a great job tonight.
That's
and
all
maybe
right.
we can
Chicken
set this
out.
up again. But maybe Mark could actually debate you, Ken, on maybe the chromosome fusion thing or something else if you guys were up for that.
Well, if he's not in
Jamie
jail,
can handle, Jamie can handle Mark. You guys continue the debate all night. I got to
am
go.
top liver?
All right.
All right.
Jamie, you handle him. I'm out. I got to go. Bye.
You're great,
Take
Jorge.
care,
I love you,
Bye,
man.
Ken.
You're amazing.
And
Well, I
that's
feel
where we
love.
give applause to Dr. Hovind for his time. He did a great job. Look at that.
Oh, you got canned applause over there. All right. All right.
All right. So, Jamie, you guys can continue. I don't want to be in the middle. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, he was just saying that it's not possible for an eagle to eat anything other than meat, but I mean, we just showed that that is very possible. Bird watchers observed this. So, I mean, I guess we can move on to another talking point.
I got a
if you
question
want.
on that, Jamie.
Sure.
This is not something. Well, I'll just ask the question. The change that Kent's talking about. So, are you saying that eagles would have had no actual change from the vegetarian only that Kent believes to now? Like it's the exact same eagle, or do you think the eagle changed in some way?
Oh no, I'm not saying that at all because your DNA can't altered based on what you eat and what environment you're in. So I'm not saying that's not the case at all. Maybe the original eagles were completely different than the ones we see today. But I mean, I'm just making the point that yes,
was it just God made it change, or was it something else that changed the eagle, in your opinion?
Well, no. I mean, I'm sure you understand creation as talking points, and we have no problem with adaptations and natural selection. So yeah, I mean, I would say that those are definitely variable factors that we can observe. However, that would bring us back to the topic of there is limitations that we see.
Okay, well, I've got a question for you. How long do fruit and vegetables keep for?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How long do fruits and vegetables keep for?
Well, the fruit and vegetables we see today, the ones with GMOs in them, don't last very long at all. They last long enough to be sold on the shelf, and then they start to rot. But I mean, going back and
organically grown ones, then how long do they last for?
Okay, organically grown. I mean, I would say
a few weeks,
maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple weeks.
How long was the ark at sea for?
Well, I mean, the ark was at sea for a year, but you're making the assumption that they made a huge stockpile of food, and then that was supposed to last them the whole year. How do you know that they weren't? I mean, there's nothing that says they weren't growing on the ark. I mean, they could have brought soil on the ark. They could have.
They were growing on the ark.
Shelf.
They were growing on the ark.
Just like we grow today.
How many animals?
Well, see, that's a debatable thing. You'd have to go into the topic of baraminology for that.
So you're telling me that 8 people on the ark, 8 people, they maintained the boat, fed all the animals, cleaned all the animals, and grew food as well.
It's possible, yeah. So the whole top floor of the ark was uninhabited as far as like where they slept and lived throughout the day. So that whole top deck of the ark could have been one giant greenhouse. I mean, it would be directly exposed to the sun. I mean, that's an interesting theory that
it's a greenhouse. They had glass. They had glass on the ark. You said it was a greenhouse.
No, I'm not saying it was a greenhouse. I'm saying it would be similar to, like a greenhouse. You can grow inside of a greenhouse. So maybe they grew inside the ark, or they could have been on the top deck. And
The only
then
reason
the sun
it-
is just directly on that top.
The only
edge, so
reason
they're
a
getting
greenhouse
sun.
works is the glass. That's what makes it work. Is the glass. You don't have a
It's
greenhouse.
not exactly true
question
because
on
I
that
have a
one.
greenhouse that's made out of plastic right now, and it's working just
Well,
fine.
oh, I'm sure they had
Hey.
plastic. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mark,
I
Mark,
forgot
stop,
they
stop,
had plastic.
stop.
Yeah.
Mark, stop.
I'm not saying
Jamie,
that's what they were on the ark.
Jamie,
That's not what I'm saying.
What were they watering these plants with?
So there's actually interesting theories about how at the beginning, before the flood took over, there wasn't a high salt content. So this would have technically been fresh water at one point in time. The idea, the idea behind that theory is that when the flood happened and all these sediments started stirring, that's when we started seeing salt water, so to say. I don't have all the specifics of that, but if that is the case, they also have models of the ark where I forgot what it's called, but it's essentially like a vat that goes up into the ark, and it basically allows
the
for
moon
the
pool
ark
thing.
Yeah, the moon pool theory. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of it. But yeah, so that could go through and just irrigate everything up top if they made an irrigation system that way. Keep in mind they had 120 years.
Ark you got here.
Yeah, keep in mind they had 100. It's very impressive. God gave the blueprint for it, so I would imagine that if God created everything in the world as magnificent as it is, and we're still trying to figure it out 6,000 years later, and y'all are still arguing about it 6,000 years later, that's a pretty incredible design. So I would imagine that if that person decided to build a boat, it'd be a pretty incredible boat. So yeah, I'm not saying that at all.
Cool.
And also, Mark, if I may suggest, it's also possible that many of the animals may have been hibernating during the flood on Noah's Ark, in which case he wouldn't have had to.
I don't think the eagles were hibernating.
And then also you have to take into consideration they wouldn't have brought grown animals on the ark because they want them to live long enough to make multiple generations after the ark. So you would have babies or young adolescents that would then eat less food as well.
Yeah, babies need more care than adults, so that doesn't really help you because they need to be cared for, nursed usually if they are babies because they need milk from a mother. So if you're claiming babies, not only do you have the problem of needing more care, you also have the problem of, well, where did they get the milk from?
I know.
It doesn't necessarily have to be babies. They could be adolescents. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Adolescents, correct.
Yeah, I corrected myself after that because...
Oh, sorry, I missed that part. Well, adolescents aren't that much
myself.
smaller. I mean, they are smaller, granted, but if you're talking about 10,000 animals, the labor on that
Do you think tortoises need help from their parents?
No, turtles are egg-laying animals, but they also need to...
Yeah, we actually...
Did you say turtles or tortoises?
Tortoise.
So the point is that some youngs never even meet their parents. Like a tortoise never takes care of its children. Once they're born out of the ground, that's it. They're on their own. So some kinds of creatures need no help from their parents is the point.
Sure.
Yeah, we know that there's a lot of animals that as soon as they're born, they're gone. Like their parents aren't even there in their life. As soon as they're born, they're off into the wild. So
but
yeah, there could have been some babies on there, but I think it's more reasonable to say that they were adolescents, past the nursing stage, onto a stage where they can fend for themselves, but they're still at a reasonable size. That seems like a logical theory.
The problem, Jamie, is that what people don't realize is people think that God is stupid, right? He can create heavens and earth, but then isn't smart enough to send the correct, adequate creatures to a man who builds a boat, right? It's kind of pathetic because obviously miracles are being involved here, right? Obviously we have Yod-Heh-Vav having a specific... I mean, Mark, it's okay. Can you stop having a seizure? Just relax, little buddy. Just relax. It's going to be okay.
I'm cool.
It's going to be okay, princess. Just relax. So we have God literally having a religion. Mark, you guys are just perverts literally having seizures and not letting anybody speak. That's all you guys do.
Wow.
I can turn it up as well. Oh, so you're saying the animals didn't have the abilities to survive and then they died, then got the ability, Mark? Because that's what you've been claiming the whole night. They all died off and then got the ability to survive. That's how smart you are compared to no, the animals were created fully functioning, and then they proceeded to procreate, bringing forth after their kind, like all of biology shows us. So all of biology shows that it has to already have the ability from the beginning. So all of science has already disproved evolution. Sorry, guys, that's why you don't even have a claim for evolution. I'm trying to show you that clearly miracles are involved here. If God had a relationship with this family and spoke to Noah, I'm sure God could handle the technicalities. Thanks.
Yeah. So I don't think God is stupid. I just don't think he exists at all. Like, I don't think this person exists at all. So I don't really, have any opinion on the attributes of an imaginary
Yes, because
figure.
you believe in a fantasy. Yes, because you believe in a fantasy. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're just for a second, the whole idea of like what a zoo's got to go through to keep animals, like even juvenile animals, they need a lot of care. Or
they don't have to do anything. We have no idea what they needed 4,000 years ago, so you can't make a claim. You're just hiding from reality.
So, and the whole idea that there were miracles involved, that sort of brings up the question. You've sort of
do you think heaven and earth created itself?
Yeah,
you believe in
If
miracles.
you claim miracles, then why not just
you claim miracles? No,
hang
the
on a
difference is
second.
I claim God made the miracles.
Can I speak?
No, why would you speak? You've been perversely slandering.
So if you're going to claim miracles, then why doesn't God just make a miracle?
We're sick of these perverted criminals lying about creation. You're the one who claims miracles. You're saying everything made itself. That's a miracle that goes against all the laws of creation. You're the one claiming billions of miracles. You're saying all the flora, fauna, animal, plants, spores, molds, and fungus made themselves accidentally. You are the religious zealot, Mark. You guys are a bunch of psychopathic retards, and next time when I come back, I'll help Kent Hovind. Thanks for your time, Praise I Am. I'll be back. Have a good night, guys. That was easy.
Wow. Is this guy seriously? Is this guy representing Christianity or what? Is this is how Christians are expected to behave when having discussions? Is this?
Well, I mean, it is hard to keep our temper when, you're being arrogant and giving that attitude the entire 2.5 hours. Like, it's been really hard to keep my cool when you're just constantly being rude.
No, I doubt your religion. It's nothing against you. I don't believe in your religion.
But you're
I don't believe in your God.
Condescending tone, though. You notice this whole night, I've been trying to be reasonable with you. I've been trying to be civil. Look, and every time you talk, it's a condescending tone. So yeah, it's very hard for us to keep our cool and be nice to you when you can't even do that for one sentence.
Look, I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm just giving the facts as I see them, as I know them.
He's a filthy Australian. That's why he sounds so weird.
Apparently so, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. It's because we lost the Great Emu War. That's why. But anyway, like when zoos have animals, they kind of have a lot of care that needs to go into them, and I cannot believe that 8 people would be able to do everything necessary on sort of one of the biggest wooden boats in history in order to run it and a zoo at the same time. And so my point was that if you put them down to adolescence, they need more care, not less. So you're actually adding up what labor is required to run this ship. And if a miracle was involved, as Exo said, then why not just have a miracle to take away all the people and not have a flood and have to have someone build a boat at all? It makes no sense to me.
Okay, so I like that question. That's a good question. The Bible says that if we deny him, the rocks would cry out. So I believe this was God's way of putting it into the rocks. So essentially, this goes to the argument of fossils. How do you think fossils, giant graveyard fossils, thousands of fossils, millions of fossils formed in sedimentary rock? Our answer is there was a flood, and that's where the sedimentary rock came from, and that's why you see millions of dead animals in them. But see, this, I'm not going off topic. This is part of the answer to your question for why didn't God just do a miracle? I think he wanted to leave evidence behind so that people could look at the scriptures, go back and say, hey, we see evidence of a flood, because we do see evidence of a flood. You see clams that were fossilized alive on top of a mountain. So that's evidence right there. You see the polystrata fossils where the trees
they don't run through multiple strata. Yeah, they're not through multiple.
Deny all of that evidence, but it's still, we can use that as evidence on our side of the model.
Nah, dog. You're barking up the wrong tree there, buddy. All right, which one do you want to do first? You want to do fossils? You want to do polystrate? Or do cemetery rock? What do you want to do first? Jamie.
Let's go ahead and go with fossils.
All right. Why do we have fossils in cemetery rock and according to evolution? Well, the vast majority of fossils are either in limestones or shales. Limestones and shales are slowly accumulated in modern day, very slowly accumulated. Shales tend to be muds, right? Bottoms of lakes, stuff like that. And limestone is a variety of things, organic or inorganic. Point is, it's a slow accumulation. So when something dies, say at the bottom of a lake or something like that, or in
or at the bottom of a flood.
That's not what I said, but thank you. When something dies and it lays down there, and the microorganisms come and they eat all the meat off it and everything, and it slowly gets covered, eventually things are going to stop eating it.
Okay, so how slow is this process of the
compression
limestone?
of that material creates go to a swamp. Swamps are things sink down to the bottom of them. Go to a lake bed. Lake beds get deeper over time. We watch these things happen every single day. Go to a lake, go to a river, things die in rivers, and the river water slowly rolls over the carcass. That, over time, given the correct collection of circumstances, may result in fossilization.
Okay, but here's the thing. You said that the limestone and the shale, they're slow accumulation. So how do some of these fossils still have the skin preserved? How do some of them still have food preserved inside of their bellies?
So it's not skin preserved, it's a skin imprint. There's a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but yet they pull DNA from that.
How the thing
we see
died.
that from Mary Nell, right? Is that her name? No, not Mary Nell. What's the
You're not going to say Schweitzer,
with the dinosaur tissue?
T-Rex blood.
Oh
yeah,
no,
there's tissue. So
the one that wrote
tissue, dude.
The one that wrote a disclaimer telling young Earth creationists to stop using her work because they're misrepresenting her.
No, I'm not making the argument of the. I'm not. What I'm saying though is she found tissue, right?
No,
so how did that tissue last longer for the limestone to encase it?
It was fossilized cartilages. Yeah, cartilage. It was cartilage, and she had to bathe it in acid for ages for it even to be usable, kind of thing. Like there was no.
Yeah, but the point is, it was still there. So how did it last long enough to be covered in limestone and fossilized?
Have you read the responses that the scientists give to this, or you just that creationist article brought it up, so therefore it's done? Like this is a conversation that what started in the early 90s, then resolved that far long ago. Fossilization is not a uniform process. Every fossil has its own story to tell. So the fossilization that results in the preservation of the blood cells in Mary Schweitzer's T-Rex is a very different thing than those imprint fossils you find of fish in limestone. You can find any gem and gift store. Like these are different conversations to happen. And when you read the actual papers that the people wrote, you're going to learn about the differences in these processes. It's not a uniform thing, dude. There's a reason why actually, let me expand just one more minute, please. There's a reason why the Mary Schweitzer style fossils are so incredibly rare. Not every fossil keeps that same collection of blood cells and stuff like that, because what happened to that fossil is different than what happens to, say, again, a fish imprint that you find at a gem and gift store. Otherwise, that fish imprint would have had those blood cell fossils and stuff like that.
So it's not as rare as you're saying it is, because when you look at the Carnegie Museum, they have plenty of videos where they say that they find these instances of the tissue and the blood cells being well preserved.
I didn't say there was
many
one.
fossils.
I said it's rare.
Well,
trilobite fossils don't have these things. Trilobites probably had blood. So it's there's not one. I didn't say there's one. They've been studying this thing since the early 90s. But
what I'm saying though is the videos from Carnegie Museum says there is tons of fossils that have these same preservations.
Tons of fossils. Okay, let me Google that. Carnegie, tons of blood fossils. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I was watching a video. I think I actually have it on my playlist here, and it's the actual curators of the museum talking about this. He's kind of a heavy guy with a big goatee. Let me see if it's in my playlist. I think it still is. Hold on, I gotta get it up. Yeah, because I saved this video because I'm actually working with that specific topic.
Well, I have a question for you.
So it might take a second.
I got a question for you while Jorge's looking that up. If they're only like a few thousand years old, and dinosaurs lived with humans back then. Why can't we find the DNA structure for them? Why is the DNA completely ruined?
What do you mean?
Well, we can find
what are you trying to ask with
well,
that?
we can find modern animals that are going through the process of fossilization, and we can still recover DNA from them. Why can't we do the same with dinosaurs?
I would have to see an instance where you can find a modern animal fossilized and recover the DNA from that. Yeah. So as far as the fossils go, I believe that I personally believe all these fossils came from the flood. Okay.
Thank you. That reminded me.
It's
why
in the side
is
chat.
Fossilization? Why are fossils so uncommon when everything died at the same time, given the same event? Why is every clam not fossilized? Why only small amounts of clams in certain distinct locations fossilized?
Well, it wasn't just a couple of them. There was a lot of clams.
Compared to the total clam population, we don't have a lot of clam fossils. So,
well, also you have to keep in mind that I don't know how much you know about the creation model, but according to the creation model, the pre-flood world was not majority ocean like we see today. The ocean, as we see it today, came from the fountains of the deep.
Okay, dude, pick your favorite animal. Birds. We do not have a lot of fossils of birds, but we have a lot of birds. Why did very small percentage of birds fossilize when every bird except for what was on Noah's Ark died?
So
well, yeah, I think that's a bad example. Maybe use a different example because the birds would be able to fly for long enough to make it to the top of the water. So as the flood is happening, the birds could be flying.
Why do we have fossilized birds?
Well, because some of them would have been affected. Okay, so look, the fountains of the deep broke open. Okay, what's to say some of those rocks hit a couple birds and shot them down, right? But overall, these birds can fly and make it to the top layers of the rock, or they would be.
We don't find birds only in the top layers. You find birds more than just the top layers. But okay, I'll choose trilobites. There you go. Trilobites are an incredibly common fossil, but did every trilobite fossilize? And if not, why did some trilobites fossilize and others didn't? That'd be at the bottom of the chain. That's a bottom-dwelling animal. Well, fish. Did every fish fossilize? If not, why did some fossilize and some not fossilize? And why are fish fossils concentrated in certain locations?
They're not though. Fish fossils are found everywhere. If you look at the fossil record, there's animals are in the fossil record spread out
geographically speaking. Geographically speaking, we don't have fossils everywhere
around the world. You can find trilobite fossils everywhere around the world. There's not a specific area that only has trilobites.
That's why fossil hunters go to certain locations to find fossils. You go in your backyard, you're not. I don't know where you live. I'm going to make the assumption you go into your backyard, you're not going to find a T-Rex. They found very few.
Actually,
T-Rex
that's not true because
T-Rex existed.
Yeah, that's not true because there's plenty of cases where a farmer was tilling his ground and he came across a whole fossil of a dinosaur. So
yeah,
that's not exactly true either.
Like 3 of those stories, 1 of them in China and 2 of them out west. That's it.
No, there's tons of stories of it. There's not just 2 or 3 stories. I think you've only read 2 or 3 stories. There's plenty of stories of this.
So where are all the fossils? Every T-Rex died at the same time. Every T-Rex was not fossilized. Why?
You know, I've never actually considered that question. That's a good question that I'd have to look into.
I like your answer, and that's acceptable to me.
Okay,
that's a really good question.
I might be.
I'll have to look into that one. But I mean, what's to say that they didn't all fossilize? Like, we're still discovering fossils today. So maybe we're gonna find. Keep in mind, there's the northern part of America. There's fossil beds with millions of fossils in there. How do we know that there's not millions of T-Rex or thousands of T-Rex?
Millions, 95%. That's probably shark teeth, but yeah.
No, it's like actual full bodies that are just scrambled. So it's like a puzzle that just was dropped on the floor and scrambled everywhere of like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, actually thousands and thousands of fossils. So see, there's plenty of fossil graveyards that we don't know exactly how many T-Rexes are in there. We don't know exactly how many Brachiosaurus are in there.
You have a fossil graveyard because that particular geographic location happened to have the components of fossilization. Outside of that geographic location, you don't have fossilization. That's a problem.
So let me ask you this. Okay,
I'm going to take off, guys. It was a good conversation. I'm going to take off, but yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, Jamie, so, just watch with the insults, man. Like honestly, it's not very nice, but yeah. Thanks for the conversation anyway.
Well, Mark,
thanks for coming in, Mark.
I'm not sure what insults you're referring to. I said you were condescending. That's
I was the one that called you a filthy Australian. Not him.
No, you called me inbred for some reason. I don't.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Again, it's hard to say. It's hard to stay civil when you're constantly being mocked and
we are
constantly getting a condescending.
Look, we're only attacking your ideas, not you personally. I got nothing against you personally, Jamie. Nothing against you personally. Like just
So I do apologize for that. I was building up I was building up a lot of animosity, so I apologize for that comment.
Well, thanks so much for the conversation. I appreciate
back to what you were saying, though, Ogre. So you're saying why